If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 21. Unfortunate fated opponent. Sending Guinevere to prove herself was not something I planned or wanted, but I just have a bleeding heart for revenge stories, especially against those who beg for help when they are at the end of their rope. Well, anyway, I ignore her for now and go to find my next opponent since I'm still in a tournament and I'm down to 3. I took out a phone I got from Mokuba and used a GPS app for a map. I know I'm being tracked with it, but I'm just happy I have a map now. Funny enough, the map app is a Kaiba Corp affiliated app that was possibly introduced for the tournament. It shows the hot spots for the duels, also the location of the furthest along. With it I also learned one fact: the crystal map cards possibly have GPS trackers in them, since it can tell I have 3 instead of 4, which my win rate would tell the app if it was connected to the duel disc. That must be how Shizu got into the finals, since I assume she just used her necklace to find lost crystal map cards or take down weak duelists to appear at the finals unexpectedly. The closest hotspot is close by, but since I assume Guinevere would go there due to her time crunch, I opt to go to another hotspot, but it appears to be on another street through some alleyways. I sigh before going to the second hotspot. Surprisingly, I don't get accosted in the alleys. I don't even get lost due to the GPS working. I am partially surprised when I exit onto the other street surrounded by duelists either dueling, waiting for their turn, or watching due to having lost. I scope out the duelists for a free person. It takes some time to look for an opponent among the waiting and watching, but after a while, I was able to convince someone to start a duel with me. He's very normal looking in comparison to the other people around me, with brown hair and some small circular glasses. We agreed to duel, and we went to an open space. For this duel, I placed my Miquella's plots deck in the duel disc. When we separate, we reach a suitable range before activating the duel discs. I then realize something: I forgot to ask his name. I scratch my cheek and ask, "ERM, I forgot to ask, but I never got your name, stranger. You can call me Drogan." This causes him to respond slightly meekly, "Oh yeah, you can call me Tucker. Now let's duel." Yes, let I ready my duel disc and let him start the duel. Duel start. Drogan's LP, 4000. Tucker's LP, 4000. First of all, I'll draw and play a terraforming from my hand to add a field card to my hand. With that, I'll place 1 monster face down and 2 cards in the spell/trap zone. Before ending. Terraforming spell. It seems he has a field card as well for his deck. I don't like that. Battle City rules make it so only 1 is allowed on the field. If I played Skadutree's Veil, he could just get rid of it with his field. It's partly lucky/unlucky that I don't have either Miquella or Skadutree Veil in my hand, but I have another demigod in my hand. My turn and I draw. Okay, then let's start this off with a hint of revenge. I summoned from my hand Adherent Vengeful Horn Scent. The wraith crawls out of the ground like a cursed spirit and wields his blades as if he was prepared to take on the world as what he wanted. Adherent Vengeful Horn Scent Wind Warrior/effect ATK 1600/def 200. When Horn Scent is summoned, he allows me to add a plot from my deck to my hand, and once it's in my hand I'll activate it immediately. I'll activate Plot against the Serpent. To ritual summon. Plot against the Serpent spell/ritual. Upon the field a blaze starts to burn, the Horn Scent becomes very agitated and screams into the air, but only me and the dual spirits hear him. "Come out, monster, come out so I can rend your skin and flay it towards your whore of a mother." Upon the field, the Horn Scent looks around in a rage, but he only finds another figure who has appeared on the field very confused. Appearing is Thial Lyre, he catches the Horn Scent's attention. This turns out to be a mistake on his part. Thial Lyre spots something and rushes towards the Horn Scent, but he doesn't get there in time, as when he's about to reach him a burning red spear appears and skewers the Horn Scent from behind and lifts him into the air. Thial Lyre pauses in fear, and before he can react, he watches as a figure cloaked in flames appears and strikes with his spear's other end, pinning Thial Lyre to the ground with a wound that runs him through. The figure appears. "Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death. In the embrace of Mesmer's flame." Mesmer the Impaler Fire Warrior/fusion/effect ATK 2800/def 2000. Standing tall wielding his spear still aflame is the lanky figure of the first demigod. His sheer presence makes the illusion of heat emanating from his person, but he isn't in his pristine form, for his eye has already been gouged out and his clothes are disheveled or burned. I'll play 1 card face down before attacking with Mesmer towards your face down. I see Tucker smile at my declaration, and he goes to flip his monster, but before he can, he watches as the card representing the face-down monster is impaled by a multitude of spears from below through its form. "I'm guessing your monster was a flip effect monster." Too bad since none can hide from Mesmer's spear. If Mesmer attacks a defense position monster he destroys it before the damage step, meaning flip effects are useless against him. The card seems to be set alight and coalesces into a ball of fire with a dark outer hue. Also, when he destroys a monster in this manner he deals damage equal to the difference between his attack and the monster's defense. My words cause Tucker's eyes to widen as the flame takes the form of a very weird-looking creature curled up in a ball. Mesmer strikes at the form, and it flies towards Tucker, hitting him. Tucker's LP, 4000-2000. He takes the hit before the dust settles to show he activated a card on his field. I activate damage equals reptile. When I take damage from a battle involving a reptile monster, this card allows me to special summon a reptile with less ATK than the damage. Damage equals reptile trap / continuous. Using this I'll special summon my alien Hypno from my deck. Appearing in a flash of light, a small grey creature appears with a green canister in his chest. Alien Hypno Water Reptile / Gemini / Effect ATK 1600 / Def 700. When I see the card, my mind remembers something and I groan spiritually before taking a second glance at my opponent. Behind me, I hear the voice of a trusty companion as Melina is standing behind me, as always, and asks, why the apprehension at the appearance of this card? I roll my eye and respond spiritually, there's a curse on the reptile monster type. If you run one of its archetypes you're either possessed by evil, working for evil, or a two-faced bitch prone to betrayal. I look at Tucker with an inquisitive eye, but I can't feel he's possessed. I can't even detect any form of spiritual power or even any imprint of spiritual power upon him. Why do you assume he's evil? It's only a single monster. I just shrug before placing one card down before ending my turn and responding to Melina. Simple. I know the alien archetype since I ran it myself in the past. Alien Hypno, while seeming weak, is annoying. I draw. Well, that's good. I play Pot of Greed to draw 2. He draws before pausing for a second before nodding with a smile. First of all, I'll Gemini summon my alien Hypno to give its effect. Also from his Gemini summon I'll use the effect of Alien Dog from my hand to appear on the field. Alien Hypno seems to glow in a flash of light, and from that light, a small lavender dog with an exoskeleton appears. It immediately starts barking at Mesmer. Alien Dog Light Reptile / Effect ATK 1500 / Def 1000. When Alien Dog is special summoned, he applies 2 alien counters to a face-up monster you control. You only have one, so the target is obvious. The dog starts to growl at Mesmer before spitting what seems to be a pair of purple acid blobs towards Mesmer. Not expecting it, Mesmer was able to dodge, but both of his snake companions take it straight in the face. On my field, I play the card A Cell Incubator, which allows me to retain used alien counters when used. Once that resolves, I activate from my hand Alien Overlord's effect, allowing me to remove 2 alien counters from anywhere on the field to special summon it from the hand, but the alien counters would be placed in the Cell Incubator for future use. A Cell Incubator spell / continuous. I watch as the purple blobs seem to jump off Mesmer before forming into an entity on Tucker's side of the field. The figure seems to duplicate before half slinks off to hide in the newly revealed card. The purple mass defines itself as it forms a black and purple carapace torso before red angry limbs appear from its sides ending with sharp claws. Alien Overlord Dark Reptile / Effect ATK 2200 / Def 1600. While it is on the field once per turn, it can infect all of your monsters with an alien counter. Both me and Mesmer watch as the monster reaches within itself and throws another blob at Mesmer, who dodges, but this time it hits his leg, turning it purple. Next I activate the Gemini effect of Alien Hypno to take control of your monster. With annoyance, I see the infection run rampant in Mesmer's body and he's forced to walk over to Tucker's field and face me. He doesn't have a smile on his face though. Yup, he's running the alien archetype. Time to face the archetype that introduced the kaiju effect into the game. Chapter 22 Knights and Aliens. Standing against an infected demigod as well as a trio of aliens was not what I expected, but the duel must continue and Tucker does this by initiating the battle phase. Let's start the battle phase with your own monster. Mesmer, attack directly. Mesmer has a look of reluctance, but he does as commanded. He charges with his spear and javelin, throws it towards me. I dodge at the last second and it strike at my arm. Dear God, this hurts. Why does it hurt? I look down at the wound and see it's actually pierced my skin and its flames cause me to take some burns. I activate Flask of Crimson Tears. It allows me to regain half of the damage I took, then allow me to search for another flask card from the deck. Flask of Crimson Tears trap / counter. Drogan's LP, 4000 1200 2600. As my LP is regained, I feel the pain from the burning spear disappear. In the reprieve from the pain, I search my deck and add a card to my hand. With a smirk, Tucker says, I'll still win even with your life points restored. Alien Overlord attack directly. In response I activate my other face down, imbibing in the deep slumber a card depicting Thial Lyre holding the nectar of St. Trina is shown surrounded by purple lilies. Alien Overlord goes to attack by charging at me, but as he charges it steps into a purple dark pool that appears on the ground. From the pool purple lilies start to form and sprout, they grow rampantly before congregating over a white hooded figure who rests in the pool. Thial Lyre appears and is resting at the pool's edge in contemplation. Alien Overlord enraged charges at Thial Lyre, who notices his approach before waving his hand and sending a blob of the dark pool at the alien. The Alien Overlord, a master of infections, ignores the act, but when the blob strikes the carapace of the Overlord the effect is immediate as the Overlord falls asleep on the ground. Thial Lyre looks at the asleep alien before throwing a needle at Tucker, which hits him. Imbibing in the deep slumber trap / counter. Adherent Malignant Thial Lyre Water Spellcaster / Effect ATK 300 / Def 300. Alien Overlord ATK 2300 0. Tucker's LP, 2000 greater than 1700. Tucker's smirk drops from his face at the appearance of his asleep Overlord. What happened? Oh, that's simple. Malignant Thial's effect is that if he's attacked while in defense mode he makes it so your monster's attack is reduced to 0 before the battle. Don't worry, it's not permanent, it only lasts until the end step. The face of Tucker is unreadable, but he sighs before ending his battle phase since he knows he can't get rid of Thial Lyre in the battle phase. He looks at his hand before playing his field card. The area around us seems to warp in color as the field card is played. Otherworld, the A-Zone spell / field. I'll end my turn, and due to the effect of Alien Hypno the alien counter is removed from Mesmer and he's destroyed. The counter will go to the incubation cell. Mesmer looks at the alien in anger before the alien virus in his flesh runs through his body and leaps out of him through his mouth into the incubation cell. Mesmer looks shocked at this, but he grasps at his chest before collapsing to the ground in pain. His skin seems to rapidly molt like a snake before he turns to flakes of ash that floats into the air, though the process he speaks out. A curse, upon thee. His words herald the awakening of the Overlord, who returns to Tucker's side of the field. The flakes start to coalesce on my field, and it forms a recognizable figure who wields a pair of blades. Due to the effect of Vengeful Horn Scent, when Mesmer is sent to the graveyard he returns to the field in ATK mode. This breaks Tucker from his contemplation of the monster's appearance. Adherent Vengeful Horn Scent Wind Warrior / Effect ATK 1600 / Def 200. Now I'll draw. First I'll play the Flask card I got and play Flask of Cerulean Tears. It allows me to draw 2, then discard 1 card to the grave. Flask of Cerulean Tears spell. Drawing more is always great. I look at my hand and discard a card that can't be used to the graveyard. Now from my hand I play Reveling in Bloodlust. This allows me to special summon Sir Ensbach from my deck onto the field. Reveling in Bloodlust spell. Sir Ensbach appears on the field from a small pool of blood like other sanguine nobles. He rises from the liquid and readies his blade that is already coated in blood. The fresh air, it's a welcoming feeling. It seems we will be working together again. Thial Lyre. Thial Lyre simply nods in his dream-addled state at Sir Ensbach's words, while the Hornscent just tries to actively ignore the pair. Adherent Sir Ensbach Dark Warrior / Effect ATK 1800 / Def 1000. Now with him on the field I next summon Adherent Robust Moor in ATK position. When he's summoned, he allows me to draw 1. A figure in stone armor climbs out of the ear and wields his shield in front of himself, which looks like he defending even though he's in attack position. Once he's fully appeared I draw a card. Adherent Robust Moor Earth Warrior / Effect ATK 600 / Def 2300. Now from my hand I activate another card. I activate Truth vs Ideals. The card appears for everyone, and it depicts a crouching figure being guarded by both Sir Ensbach and Thial Lyre, who represent the truth of the wrongness of Miquella's act, while 5 other adherents are standing across a large room ready to guard Miquella for his and their ideals. Truth vs Ideals spell / continuous. This card requires there to be at least 2 adherent monsters on the field to work, but it affects each adherent monster in different ways. For those it affects, it swaps Moor's ATK and Def first of all. Adherent Robust Moor ATK 600 2300 / Def 2300 greater than 600. Next Truth vs Ideals makes it, so Hornscent gains 200 ATK per adherent on the field, which means his attack is increased by 800. Adherent Vengeful Hornscent ATK 1600 greater than 2400. Hornscent take down the Overlord. My words are met with a smirk of Tucker. Due to the effect of my field card your monster's ATK is reduced by 300 when he attacks my Overlord. I sigh and smirk myself as I look Tucker in the eyes and say I activate the Hornsent's battle ability. I can pay up to 500 LP to increase its attack for the turn. I'll pay simply 200 so it beats your overlord. Drogan's LP, 2600-2400. The Hornsent charges with great bloodlust at the overlord in a rush. When close to the alien he leaps into the air and descends like a bird of prey upon the alien. The sound of claw against blade is heard as the pair do a duel of crazed blows, but the Hornsent is victorious as he beheads the beast. Next I'll have Sir Ensbach attack, and before you say anything, he has the same life point payment effect, but he can attack twice, so I'll pay 700 life points to increase Sir Ensbach's ATK to 2500, before destroying both Alien Hypno and Alien Dog. Drogan's LP, 2400 greater than 1700. Adherent Sir Ensbach ATK 1800-2500. I hear the laughing of the old man as he become empowered. In a flash his figure disappears and he appears at the forms of the Alien Hypno and Alien Dog. He strikes quickly and without mercy. The dog pixelates and is destroyed, but Alien Hypno is still alive, mainly due to a trap card on Tucker's field. Safe Zone Trap / Continuous. I activated Safe Zone to protect my Alien Hypno. It can't be destroyed by battle. I shrug before looking at Moore and pointing at the Alien Hypno. Lastly Moore attack the last alien. Moore grunts before simply walking to the alien and striking it with his shield before returning to his position. Tucker's LP, 1700, 1600, 1200, 500, 200. The total offensive takes Tucker from near full to near empty in one turn, but the cost is that my hand is down to 3 cards. My thoughts are cut short as Tucker activates a card. I activate damage equals reptiles on the last damage I took to special summon from my deck Alien Grey in attack mode. Alien Grey light reptile / effect ATK 300 / def 800. He's resourceful at least, but since I don't have much left I can do, but I have a feeling he'll use his resourcefulness to make a comeback. I play a card face down before ending my turn. He draws before smiling at the card and playing it directly onto the field. I activate Card of Sanctity, which allows both of yous to draw to 6 cards. Card of Sanctity spell, anime effect. We both draw and peruse our cards, but Tucker acts first. I play Coda Ancient Ruins, then I use its effect by removing 2 A counters from my incubator to special summon from my graveyard Alien Overlord. The ruins form on the field and a ruined archway starts to glow. Some of the purple blobs from the incubator jump to the archway, and from it the appearance of the Overlord appears again on the field ready to fight. Next I'll use Alien Overlord's effect to apply A counters to all monsters on your field. As his words are said, the Alien Overlord retracts 4 of its arms back into its torso to pull out the masses of infected matter before throwing it at the adherents. Each now sport a blotch of purple on their armor. Tucker seems to pause for a second before nodding. Next I'll use Alien Hypno to target and take over Thial Lyre onto my field. Thial Lyre seemingly sleepwalking plods along across the field before resting upon Tucker's field in defense position. I'll use Thial Lyre as a tribute to summon my rarest monster. I summon Cosmic Horror Gangiel. Thial Lyre seems to hear Tucker and wakes up from his sleep in a start, but the floor beneath him seems to ripple before a giant maw appears and consumes the follower. The maw grows from the ground and stands tall, being a head taller than the Overlord with a multitude of mechanical pincer-like legs. Cosmic Horror Gangiel light reptile / effect ATK 2600 / def 2000. Next I play a double summon and use my second normal summon to tribute summon again using my Alien Grey as a tribute, this time for Alien Mother. Alien Grey curls up into a ball before a shell seems to form over it. The egg shakes twice before exploding in light, producing the form of what can only be described as an Alien Mother. Alien Mother dark reptile / effect ATK 2300 / def 1500. When that card is played, I make a decision, since with all 3 on the field it's a hard bulwark to overcome. When he says he's entering his battle phase, I respond. I activate the trap card on my field, Cleansing Chamber Showdown. The card flips up to reveal Lita with a sword raised with a hand extended out forward with an open palm to indicate a challenge. Cleansing Chamber Showdown trap / continuous. When this card is played, it allows me to summon as many adherent monsters from the graveyard as possible, but in ATK position, so Thial Lyre returns. But the key part of this card is that while there is an adherent monster on the field, battles involving adherent monsters don't cause battle damage. Tucker nods in understanding before ordering. He looks at his queen, then my adherents. Alien Mother take out more. He watches as his Alien Mother charges at the verdigris armored man and strikes his shield. It pierces, though impaling him. Sad forever now. Tucker smiles before speaking. When Alien Mother defeats a monster with an A counter on it, I can take control of it. As he says this, Moore's form pixelates before disappearing, but he doesn't reform on the field. Hey! I'll explain. My cleansing room showdown makes it so when an adherent is sent to the graveyard they're removed from play instead. Your alien mother says when it sends a monster to the graveyard, not when it simply defeats a monster with an A counter on it. He frowns at this since I would assume he would have liked to have a 2300 ATK more on the field to finish me off, that's why I knew it was needed early. The turn continues as I expect as he uses his aliens to take down Sir Ensbach, Thial Lyre, then the Horn Scent. This caused both my Truth vs Ideals as well as the showdown to go to the grave due to no adherents left on the field. My board empty but with a full hand I watch as he places one card down before ending his turn. I draw. And as if it's a destiny draw, I draw a certain demigod. It seems I'll be winning here. First of all, I'll play a spell card from my hand. I play Mesmer's Flame. A card depicting Mesmer raising aloft his flame ready to strike appears. Mesmer's Flame spell. It allows me to target spell and trap cards on the field and destroy them, but if you want you can pay 300 LP to stop the destruction of a card. I'll target your field card as well as your face down card, since you only have 200 LP they're destroyed regardless. The field card disappears and the face down that appears to be Sakuretsu's armor appears before being burned away. Next I summon Miquella the Kind from my hand in ATK mode. Miquella appears this in his normal fashion, but he leers at the alien quartet before spirit talking, they're an ugly bunch aren't they? Miquella, the Kind light spellcaster / effect ATK 100 / def 0. When he's summoned, I am allowed to add my own field card to my hand from the deck, which I will do. I play the Skadutree's Veil, which also allows me to add another card from my deck with it being a plot card. My quick play of searching my deck causes Tucker to start to sweat from the complexity alone. It doesn't help when the veil appears to blanket the surroundings in rays of shadow and faint light. The Skadutree's Veil spell / field. Now I'll use the plot card I just searched for. From my hand I play Plot of a Severed Heart. Plot of a Severed Heart spell. This card requires Miquella on the field, but it allows me to special summon his counterpart St. Trina, who when summoned makes me flip a coin to determine their effect. Miquella sighs on the field before walking over to the remains of the pool of liquid that was created in the usage of imbibing in the Deep Sleep's animation before reaching into the pool to pull out his other half. St. Trina Dark Plant / effect ATK 0 / def 2000. With the appearance of St. Trina I take out a coin and everyone watches as I flip the coin. It flips in the air multiple times, and it lands on my open hand as heads. Well, it seems my victory is assured. Since with the heads effect of St. Trina, it allows me to summon Putrescence Knight from my extra deck. The pool of ichor beneath St. Trina and Miquella seems to slowly bubble and boil with time drawing attention, and after a few seconds a skeletal figure appears as if emerging from a pool riding a similarly skeletal horse, each of their forms caked in the ichor from the pool. It wields its axe and faces towards the aliens. Putrescence Knight Dark Zombie / Fusion / effect ATK / def 1800. Ah, it's a fusion, and what's with its ATK points? Are you sure you're going to win this turn? I hear Tucker behind his aliens say. I am sure since, firstly the Putrescence Knight's ATK is equal to the ATK of the strongest monster in the graveyard, which would be Mesmer. Secondly I play from my hand Quick Attack, to allow the Putrescence Knight to attack this turn, and attack it shall since it can attack all monsters on your field. At my words the knight rears up on its decaying mount and gets ready to lunge towards the aliens. Putrescence Knight ATK? 2800. Putrescence Knight attack the aliens and win me the duel. The knight charges and swings his axe down, defeating the aliens each in tandem. The strike of the knight causes some of its decaying matter to hit Tucker, removing the last of his life points. Tucker's LP 200 0. Drogan wins. Creator's thoughts. Movie pitch. Aliens crash land in medieval Europe but directly into a castle. They need to rebuild ship from crash, but their presence makes it so the entire country goes to war against the castle. The final scenario is essentially a sci-fi siege battle with limited aliens with sci-fi but modern levels of tech vs tons of knights and militia with cold weapons and maybe some early black powder weapons aka grenades. Chapter 23, Remember kids, don't follow strangers. Defeating Tucker wasn't a grand event since around us many people were winning and losing around us, but I will say that my duel garnered the most attention mainly because of the additional theatrics initially with Mesmer's ritual summon and the Putrescent Knight's charge to take out the three strong aliens. As the night fades, I approach Tucker, who looks glum at his loss, but I can tell he accepts it since he did have a stacked field, and I was able to overtake the bulwark at the end, so he lost fairly. I reach him and speak, so it seems I've won. Now I know you have your alien deck, and I can't use your rarest monster since I think it would be alien mother, so you can just give me your card of sanctity instead. My words cause him to smile since I can tell he would prefer that than losing the alien archetype's strongest change of heart engine. He presents to me his crystal map card as well as the card of sanctity. I take them before pocketing them. He's very silent, but I turn away from him and go towards the crowd looking for another opponent. It seems it is not meant to be since everyone else around me saw my duel with Tucker and watched as I turned the table in a single turn. I don't find another opponent and it leads to me just meandering around the pack. I find some interesting old cards being played, but as I said, it's mainly boring having to just watch the caveman fights. Me have a big stick, let's beat the other person on the head with it, riveting dueling. The beat sticking is so interesting that I started to have a philosophical argument with probably the last person I expected in my mind. Rykard, you were a historical footnote, and you know it. This causes some of the demigods to nod, including his sister Rani. Me and my actions upon Mt. Gelmir were akin to a poised blade at the cradle of the Erd tree and what it stood for. Hell, I'm pretty sure I was the only one of the demigods to intentionally cut down an Erd tree, even if it was a minor sapling. I shrug. Yeah, and in the process, you played your hand too early, and squandered your advantageous position to Altus Plateau. You knew the grafted family splinter would assault Lindell. Waiting for them to siege the city before letting both parties be exhausted would have been better. I cross my arms and raise one to my chin. By just waiting you would have learned of Morgoth and the strength of the dragon cult still in the city without wasting resources, and then you could have entered acting as an ally to the city to reinforce it while it was depleted, then boom coup for the win. My words make Rykard grumble in silence, but I continue. Your move to feed yourself to the giant snake wasn't the best. It would have been better if you did it as a last resort if you were cornered within your Volcano Manor fortress. But your plan was just get eaten then wait, thinking once everyone is dead you could take the crown. It removed you from the board and made you irrelevant from that point on. I pause for a second before smirking. Hell, Tanith has a bigger impact than you since she hunts down most of the tarnished in the lands with her recusants while you were being digested. This causes him to wince since I can tell he wasn't expecting that even after telling her to forget him with the tonic of forgetfulness. I watch his expression with mild joy, but in my view, I see something that seems very wrong. I watch as a pair of robed men essentially guide a small girl into a dark alleyway. My line of sight catches most of the demigods' attention and they see the same thing as me. I sigh, and as a good Samaritan that I am, I go to follow the trio into the alleyways. The pair of hooded figures are slippery even while guiding the girl, but using that top-down vision trick I figured out earlier, along the way to their destination I come to realize that the pair are both rare hunters, which limits what they want from the girl, but I still have no idea. The trio exit the alleyways into what seems to be a football pitch-sized parking lot complex with multiple floors. It becomes trickier to tail them using my top-down view, but with a simple perception blocking barrier I just follow them and watch where they go. I get very close to the trio and start to hear their conversation. That's why I'll beat Kaiba and get one of his blue eyes. The girl says in a hyperactive voice. I can tell that the robed pair are essentially at the end of their rope, but as I get close I notice that the girl has blonde hair and is carrying a teddy bear while also lugging the hefty dual disc on her arm. I try and jog my memory, but it's hard to remember every person who appeared in the show since I watched it long ago. Miquella, can you do another memory dive, this time for the girl in front of us? I feel like I know who she is but I can't put my finger on it. I watch as he scoffs before fading into motes of light towards me. While he does that, I follow the trio to the roof of the complex. All the while the girl is essentially boasting that she'll beat Sito easily before doing her revenge against him. Knowing canon and the fact he currently has a god card, I find that unlikely, but kids can dream. Found the memories. She's someone called Rebecca Hawkins. The only thing in your memories about her is that she's a minor character that is the grandchild of the owner of the fourth Blue Eye's original owner. Other than that, in the future she gains an infatuation towards the starfish-headed person. Oh, well, that jogs some memories loose. Isn't she also like some international champion as well, meaning she would have likely gotten a ticket to the tournament anyway? Going off what I heard, she probably wants revenge against Sito for destroying her grandfather's blue eyes, even if it's Yugi's grandpa's card. It also comes from my memories she's also currently the only person to technically beat Yugi, well, just Yugi, and even then, he surrendered when he could have won, but the digital signature remains since that was before dual discs and they used a holographic arena. With that I realized why the rare hunters are interested in her. They must think she is strong enough to defeat the Pharaoh using that data, so they want to brainwash her to be a tool like Marik would do with Joey, or make her a puppet like Guinevere's brother. Maybe he's doing this to try and act as insurance, since my appearance must have thrown a wrench in the gears of his plan. I get close to the trio and watch. I can tell Rebecca is being misled, maybe because she's like 8 or 10, but even she can now tell something is wrong. The hooded robed figures, having lost all patience, start to speak out their grand and evil plan. They get through the whole spiel, but by the end of it, it becomes apparent my idea is correct, and they plan to gang up on her to defeat her before getting Marik to puppet her. I sigh before putting the Miquella's plots deck in the dual disc. I can't let this happen, so I sneak up behind the pair and ready my dual disc. Everyone else readies their dual discs, and with an evil smile I watch as the dual disc detects 4 players and sets us up in a 2 vs 2 scenario. This causes the rare hunters to look shocked. I let go of the perception barrier and say 2 iconic words, while applying to join Rebecca's side for the duel. Hello there. Chapter 24, Chapter 24, Plotting Ghouls vs Thieving Goblins. My appearance and words catch the attention of the 3 other duelists. Who are you to interfere with our mission? You don't know the ire you create with your actions. At his words I just smirk before walking around the pair of rare hunters. While I walk, I talk. Oh, I very much know what I'm doing. I'm stopping a pair of creeps working for a narcissist from taking advantage of a young individual who shouldn't be involved in his crusade. I don't know what you call what you were going to do, but it was kidnapping and molestation of a minor. At the end of my words, I reach Rebecca, who seems annoyed at my appearance. I didn't need your help, I could have beaten them both easily. I tilt my head before whispering to her. Oh, no doubt about that, little Miss Intercontinental Champion, but these guys don't play by the book. If you won, there was a very high chance of them grabbing you and then taking a jump to try and hurt Yugi in some way. I say this by leering at the edge of the parking complex. This causes her face to become pale. I turn to the pair of rare hunters. Well, anyway, now that this has become the situation, I never got your names, so I would be grateful if you introduced yourselves. The pair lower their rare hunter cloak hoods to reveal a pair of bronze-skinned men. Their faces are very similar to each other, indicating that they might be brothers. The main differences between the pair are that the right one has his dark brown hair tied up in a mass of weaves bound by tons of beads while wearing a pair of sunglasses. The other brother is sporting a dark black buzz-cut. The only other key difference is that he has a very prominent Glasgow scar from his left lip to his left ear that takes up a quarter of his face. We won't share our names, since once we beat you two, you won't remember it anyway when you become a puppet for Marik. The scar-faced brother says. Well, how rude. Since they won't say, I'll just have to give them names. I give the pair a look and make a funny comparison. I point to the scarred brother and say, I'll call you Scar, and your brother, I point to the other brother with a mane of weaves and beads, I'll call Mufasa. I watch as the brothers are shocked. It confuses me for a second, but the one I defined as Mufasa says in mild shock, how did you know my name? This makes both me and Rebecca pause. Wait, really? I play it cool and just shrug. Well, anyway, are we starting the duel or not? I hear Rebecca say. Oh yeah, sure, let's duel. I ready my dual disc for the duel and everyone else starts the duel. Rebecca's LP, 4000. Scar's LP, 4000. Drogan's LP, 4000. Mufasa's LP, 4000. Rebecca starts off the duel by drawing. She looks at her cards before playing a monster face down and another card in her back line before ending her turn. I see Scar leer at her T set up before drawing his card and looking at his hand in contemplation. I'll summon a marauding captain to allow me to add a level 4 or below warrior to my hand. After that, I'll play a pot of greed to draw 2 cards. The warrior appears and wields his sword in opposition. Marauding Captain Earth Warrior / effect ATK 1200 / def 400. Pot of Greed spell. We watch him draw, then he places 2 cards on the field before nodding to me, to indicate the end of his turn. I draw my card and look at my hand. Let's start this off with a change of scenery. I play the Skidoo Tree's Veil. My words cause the Skidoo Tree to appear behind me and Rebecca, casting a shadow behind us and blocking the sun's light using its many shadowy veils. The Skidoo Tree's Veil spell / field. This allows me to add a plot card to my hand from my deck. I'll add and play Miquella's Ascension plot, which allows me to search my deck and special summon Miquella the Kind. My words cause the amber of the Skidoo Tree behind me to glow golden as a Miquella's cross appears. From the flash of the cross's appearance, Miquella appears with a holier-than-thou expression. Miquella's Ascension plot spell / continuous. Miquella, the Kind light spell caster / effect ATK 100 / def 0. With that, next activate the Skidoo Tree's Veil again to special summon an adherent from my deck to the field. I'll special summon adherent Needle Knight Lita in ATK mode. She appears as if having just climbed the outside of the parking complex and jumps over the concrete barrier. She walks with the grace of Miquella's knight and knees at his feet to show her loyalty. I have returned, my lord. May my blade never falter in your service. Adherent Needle Knight Lead a Light Warrior / Effect ATK 1800 / Def 1800. I'll place 2 cards face down before activating Leda's first effect, which allows me to add an adherent monster from my deck to my hand, and since I haven't normal summoned, I'll do that now and summon Adherent Red Minifreya in ATK mode. Adherent Red Minifreya Fire Warrior / Effect ATK 1800 / Def 1500. Leda raises her swords to the air and then points to an empty space on my field. There a warrior clad in golden armor sporting a white plume head masked helm appears in a flash of flame beside Miquella opposite Leda. Her head turns to Miquella, but it doesn't last long before she focuses on the brothers ready for war. With that, I'll end my turn. I indicate to Mufasa to go, and he does his draw. I draw and from my hand, I'll copy my brother by playing a marauding captain in ATK mode before adding a level 4 or below warrior to my hand from the deck. A second marauding captain appears and both of them smirk before standing next to each other. Mufasa draws and smirks before playing 2 face-down cards in his back line. I don't like the feeling I get from those cards. But it's now Rebecca's turn and she can now attack. I watch her draw and look at her hand. I'll place 1 card down on the field, then I'll play card destruction. Everyone discards their hand before drawing equal to the drawn amount. Card destruction spell. This annoys me a bit since I had both St. Trina is in my hand as well as Mesmer's plot cards, so they're now in the graveyard, meaning Thial Lyre is useless and Mesmer isn't making an appearance. We all draw more cards and lo and behold Mesmer is in the next 3 cards I have. Meh, I shrug at the cards. I shouldn't have because I watch as Rebecca starts popping off. Next I'll play 2 Pot of Greed from my hand which I just drew, setting my hand to 5. From those 5 I'll summon another face-down monster before playing another card destruction, discarding our hands again. My face has soured since I had Mesmer, St. Trina's plot card and imbibing in the deep slumber. And with that, Thial Lyre, my perfect defender, is now useless without Truth vs Ideals. It doesn't help that Thial Lyre is in the next 3 cards I draw. Rebecca just continues her turn. I'll place all 3 of my cards face down on the field before activating the card I played at the start of my turn, Card of Demise. This allows me to draw up to 5 cards for no. She draws back up to 5, then the next flurry of moves can only be described as discard and draw on repeat as she activates 3 hand destructions intermittently, so everyone has to discard 2 then draw 2, then discard 2, then draw 2, then discard 2, then draw 2. The move takes 2 of the cards she placed before the Card of Demise. Hand destruction spell / quick effect x3. Though her cards unintentionally, she just made me do a ton of prep work even with only 3 cards in hand. Even after going through probably more than half her deck, she looks dejected. Maybe she didn't get the cards she wanted. The odds were unlikely, but it can happen. She looks at her hand before placing 1 card down before ending her turn. We all watch Scar draw. He quickly starts. I'll play 2 Dark Eruptions from my hand to add 2 dark monsters with less than 1500 ATK to my hand. Next I'll activate 1 card on my field, being Double Summon. To summon both of the monsters I just retrieved. I summon Mini the Thorn and Don Zalog in ATK mode. Dark Eruption spell. Double Summon spell. Dark Scorpion, Mini the Thorn Dark Warrior / Effect ATK 1000 / Def 1800. Don Zalog Dark Warrior / Effect ATK 1400 / Def 1500. He fills his field with cards I recognize, but I'm not worried since both me and Rebecca have blockers on the field to stop them from doing their effects. I watch as Scar smiles before deciding on his assault path. Firstly, I'll activate my face down, Reggi. Storm clouds appear above us illuminated by the Skidoo tree's veils. In an instant lightning strikes our field and destroys all monsters on the field. The only one remaining is Miquella, who seems startled at the board wipe. Him still on the field makes the 3 other players confused, so I explain, Miquella the kind cannot be destroyed by spells, he also cannot be targeted for attack, so my board is still open for direct attacks. This causes Scar to nod before speaking his assault. Don Zalog will attack the face down while Mini will attack the stranger directly. When he says this, his monsters go to attack. Zalog jumps into the air and comes down on the face down monster. It flips to reveal a semi-transparent fairy-like creature with the only visible parts of it being a halo, a pair of wings, a bow, and some feet. Skelangle Light Fairy / Flip / Effect ATK 900 / Def 400. Drogan's LP, 4000 3000. Rebecca smiled before placing her hand on her deck. My little angel was flipped, allowing me to draw a card. She draws a card. Scar then speaks. Since Mini dealt damage, she allows me to add a black scorpion to my hand from the graveyard. He does so, increasing his hand size, before he places a pair of cards face down before indicating the end of his turn, making it my turn now. I draw and look at the card I drew. I look at Scar's card and notice something. I'll activate the Skadutree's Veil to special summon an adherent monster. I'll summon Adherent Robust Moor in defense position. The ground cracks and Moor climbs out of the fissure in his bulky armor, wielding his shield proudly but nervously. Adherent Robust Moor Earth Warrior /effect ATK 600 /def 2300. When Moor is summoned, he allows me to draw a card. I draw and shrug at the card, slightly annoyed that one card on the field is made redundant. It seems they both want to appear, so I'll reveal from my hand Blood Cocoon Plot to allow me to add a certain ritual monster to my hand, then I'll play the same card. For the cost of removing 3 cards from my graveyard from play, I'll summon Moog, Lord of Blood. The fissure created by Moor's appearance starts to bleed blood like a wound and creates a wound upon the floor which pools in blood. From the pool the demigod of blood appears with a flourish of his sacred spear. He appears ready for war. Welcome, honored guest, to your doom. Blood Cocoon Plot spell /ritual. Moog, Lord of Blood Dark Fiend /ritual /effect ATK 2000 /def 3000. The sheer presence of Moog makes the whole duel arena to be tinted in a crimson red. Next I'll activate from my hand Sibling Bond. This allows me to special summon to the field Miquella's sister Malenia, Blade of Miquella. The pools of blood surrounding Moog start to boil as they take on a darker color and seem to thicken into a sludge-like mass akin to the Lake of Rot. A geyser appears, and from it, the figure of Malenia appears, and in a single moment she and Moog are weapon-locked as she says one word. Kidnapper. Malenia, Blade of Miquella Fire Warrior /Empyrean /effect ATK 2500 /def 1000. Moog is silent, but he does protect himself. With a push he gets Malenia off his spear, and she lands next to Miquella and guards him from all perils. Moog sighs before looking forward. Now my battle phase. My words cause some confusion since everyone can tell that the pair of marauding captains are making a perfect block scenario. I know you're thinking, I can't attack due to the pair of captains, but you're wrong. First I'll attack directly with Miquella against Mufasa. Miquella steps from his sister's embrace before pointing at Mufasa to shoot him with a ray of light. Mufasa's LP, 3900. When Miquella attacks, the plot card on the field allows me to search my deck for a plot card. I only have one left, so I'll just add that to my hand. Next Malenia, who isn't affected by monster effects, will attack Scar's captain. As I draw a card, Malenia becomes a blur as the captain is bisected in half horizontally. Both the black scorpions react in shock at the quick kill as Malenia reappears next to Miquella. Now her effect activates, increasing both her ATK and my LP by 200. Scar's LP 2700. Malenia, Blade of Miquella ATK 2500 greater than 2700. Drogan's LP, 3200. And now without the captains doing a perfect block, Moog can have a swing in. Moog will take out Mufasa's captain. Due to the size of Moog, his attack is very easy to do as he strikes down with his spear upon the last marauding captain. Mufasa's LP, 3900 greater than 3100. With that, I'll end my turn. Mufasa draws his card and looks at the field before sighing. I'll summon an ATK position Goblin Attack Force. Coming from the ramp to our level appears a mob of goblins wearing construction worker clothes and hard hats wielding clubs. Goblin Attack Force Earth Warrior /effect ATK 2300 /def 0. Next I'll play from my hand 2 Forbidden Chalices to increase their attack by 400 each, at the cost of ignoring their effect. Forbidden Chalice spell /quick play. Goblin Attack Force ATK, 2300 greater than 3100. A pair of the goblins take out what seems to be whiskey flasks before chugging them and gaining arms like Popeye from those old cartoons. I'll play a card from my hand, being Card of Sanctity, allowing everyone to draw to 6 cards. Card of Sanctity spell. This allows everyone to refill their hands, but Mufasa must have gained the most since he went from 1 to 6, but in the corner of my eye I can see Rebecca smiling. Now Goblin Attack Force will attack Malenia. I don't have a response to that, and everyone is dumbfounded as the Blade of Miquella gets ganged on by a crew of goblins. She sliced a ton of the mob apart in the process, but the 2 swollen members of the mob were able to restrict her arms to let the others beat her up. Drogan's LP, 3200 greater than 2800. I'll play 2 cards face down before ending my turn. The smile on Rebecca's face increases before she draws her card. She simply places 1 card on the field, and it makes me remember realizing her strategy. First, during my standby phase, I use the effect of both Marie the Fallen in my graveyard to increase my life points by 400. Rebecca's LP, 4400. She looks at her hand and then comes to a realization. With a light smile she looks towards me. Mister, if possible, can I borrow one of your monsters? I look at her and then look at my field. I shrug. Sure, you can use Miquella, just know he can't be affected by spells. Oh, goody, I can summon both of my fav monsters then. I'll activate a double summon first so I can normal summon twice. First I'll summon from my hand the card Yugi gave me. Ties of Friendship. Appearing on the field is a creature that can only be described as an angel come to earth, with golden hair and pure white and pink robes with her hands clasped in prayer. Her form rests on the ground on her knees while in prayer in defense mode. Ties of Friendship Light Fairy /tuner/ effect ATK 0/def. While she is summoned, her defense is equal to the total defense of all monsters on my side of the field divided by half, and since we are in a tag team that also includes Mr's monsters as well. Ties of Friendship Def. 2650. She looks at her field in her hand before giving me a look of determination. Realizing her intent, I wave and point towards Miquella, who doesn't catch the exchange since he's leering at the goblins. Next I'll use the double summon, but I'll borrow a monster from Mr. and tribute Miquella to tribute summon my favorite monster, Shadow Ghoul. Miquella looks at Rebecca with a look of outrage, but he catches my expression that is impassive to his blight. No one says anything in response, so beneath Miquella his shadow becomes thick as a clawed hand spawns from the pool and drags him in by the ankles. Once he's gone, the creature appears on Rebecca's field. When it appears, the fairy's wings grow bigger. Shadow Ghoul Dark Zombie /effect ATK 1600/def 1300. Ties of Friendship Def 2653,300. Now my favorite part about Shadow Ghoul is that it gains 100 ATK per monster in my graveyard. This also applies to Mr's graveyard as well since we're tag team dueling. I simply whistle in amusement at the Shadow Ghoul becomes as big as Raiden in size alone. Shadow Ghoul ATK 1600 3100. Now with my big mean Shadow Ghoul on the field, I'll have him attack the mean-looking Don Zalug man. The Shadow Ghoul becomes a shadow on the ground before zipping over towards Don Zalug, but Scar has a response. I'll flip my face down, negate attack, blocking the attack and ending the battle phase. Negate attack trap/counter. His card activates just in time as the tip of the Shadow Ghoul's claw was inches from Don Zalug's eye. Well, I'll place one card face down on the spell and trap zone before ending my turn then. At her words, Scar takes his turn and some sweat is on his brow from the appearance of the Shadow Ghoul. I'll draw. From my hand I'll play a Pot of Greed to bolster my hand. He draws more. Okay, that's enough. I'll play from my hand the spell Dark Scorpion, Tragedy of Love. For the cost of Mini, she destroys all of your monsters on the field. Dark Scorpion, Tragedy of Love spell. Don Zalug essentially takes out a piece of treasure and inspects it while turning away from Mini. This causes Mini to become crestfallen and try and catch his attention, but when she touches him, he puts too much force in the rebuff of the contact and sends Mini flying to the center of the field. There she curls up and her thorn whip starts to explode in growth and explode towards me and Rebecca's field. The growth explosion is very large to cover both fields, but as it would hit us, the wings in the background flap once and shrink in form before rushing the growth. Ties of Friendship appears at the thorn cocoon and wrap themselves around the cocoon like a gentle hug. They both pixelated, and both go to the graveyard. Rebecca explains once she collects herself. Ties of Friendship make it so all of our monsters besides itself cannot be destroyed by spell or trap effects. Scar recovers and plays another card from his hand. It's another Riggi. The effect again is instant, and it makes it so the only thing left on our fields is Moog, who is immune to spell and trap effects. I just respond by saying he's immune to spells. This makes Scar scowl greatly. I'll summon to the field Armor Breaker in ATK position, then I'll use its effect to equip it to Don Zalug. Armor Breaker Earth Warrior /Union/effect ATK 800/def 800. Don Zalug ATK 1400 2200. Don Zalug take out Moog. Now wielding his very large-looking hammer, he jumps into the air before doing SA Lion's Claw maneuver by doing a forward somersault before slamming it into the head of Moog, which makes him degrade into a shower of blood as he's defeated. Drogan's LP, 2800 greater than 2600. With Don Zalug's effect you have to discard a random card, and Armor Breaker's effect allows me to destroy a card on the field. I'll take out her face down card. I place my hand onto a recess on my dual disc for it to pick a card randomly while Rebecca's face down is flipped to reveal it was a Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn spell. The card picked randomly is revealed to me and I just start laughing maniacally. This catches everyone's attention since it just comes out of nowhere. What's so funny? Both of your fields are empty. we still have strong monsters, so how could you turn it around? I reveal the discarded card at random, plot against the Star Scourge. It's simple really, with this the final piece is in place. I place the fourth plot card into the graveyard. I recollect my hand from the recess. Scar is very unnerved, but he has little he can do, so he has to end his turn letting it be my turn. I draw. Nice but not needed. Just so you all know, I wanted to use this during the finals just to mess with them, but it seems it's time I bring them out. I activate the Scadutri's Veil's second effect. When there are 4 or more plot cards within the graveyard, I am allowed to search my deck or graveyard to add a special ritual card to my hand. The Scadutri seems to glow brightly as its form seems to shift like in a mirage before I take a card from the graveyard. I activate from my hand, the Gate of Divinity. The Gate of Divinity spell/ritual/equip. Chapter 25, Chapter 25 The Conjoined God Descends. I activate from my hand, the Gate of Divinity. The Gate of Divinity spell/ritual/equip. The gateway behind me starts to radiate power and a blinding light between the columns which cause those who look to be blinded. I'm confused for a second, but I feel a weight on my soul as information is placed within my mind. As it turns out, it seems the Elden God cards need a incantation like the Golden Dragon of RA, but as the Miquella's Elden Beast I know them instinctively. I sigh before starting to speak. A Lord will usher in a God's return, and the Lord's soul will require a vessel of divine standing. Both his loyal blade and the champions of the festival laid the path. May their deeds ever be praised in song, for now, the vow will be honored. A lord within a body infused with life shall call forth the mind of an Empyrean, they will combine and return together to live amongst us. So that they may be the promised consort and usher in a new reign across the land. Stepping out of the light is the depiction of Raiden, but in a more wild form. He wields his twin greatsword, one in each hand, and unlike the game version, Miquella is riding upon his back at the start ready to join the fight. Promised consort Raiden Light God/ritual/effect ATK/def. When promised consort Raiden is on the field, his attack and defense become equal to that of Raiden and Moog, who were removed from play to summon them. Promised consort Raiden ATK 3000/def 3000. Next, promised consort Raiden gains 500 ATK per spell card in the graveyard. This includes Rebecca's. Promised consort Raiden ATK 3000 10,500. The presence of the God card causes both Scar and Mufasa to collapse to their knees in sheer fright. Even Rebecca is absolutely terrified at the 10,500 ATK God card on the field. I just laugh like a fucking madman, and point my God card towards Mufasa. You lose, I'll attack Mufasa's goblin attack force and deal 8,300 damage to him. Scar panics and says, I'll activate one of my face down quick play spells, Shrink, to cut your God card's attack in half. He flips the card, this happens and one of consort Raiden's blades fade into motes of light, but they continue their assault. Shrink spell/quick play. Promised consort Raiden ATK 10500 greater than 5,250. Mufasa's LP, 3,100 150. From the blow, Mufasa is physically sent flying away and is only stopped from falling off the building from the concrete barrier. Scar runs from his place and goes to attend to his brother. Everyone hears as Mufasa coughs up some blood. He looks forward and I can tell his consciousness is hanging on by a thread. Above Mufasa's head appears what seems to be a crown of light which hovers over him. The pair of brothers are both breathing heavily due to the god's presence, which is akin to a glowing star, but they stand up, Scar supporting Mufasa. Well, it seems you survive for now. You may have one last turn, it seems. Mufasa, who is actually shaking in fear, draws from his deck and looks at his hand, and scowls. I'll play a warrior returning alive to regain my marauding captain, which I'll summon in defense position. The warrior returning alive spell. Marauding captain Earth Warrior/effect ATK 1200/def 400. I'll add a warrior to my hand due to its effect. Next, I'll use my double summon to allow me to summon a second marauding captain in defense. I watch in amusement as he has to make another perfect lock scenario to simply hold back the god card. Curiously, I take out a piece of paper from one of my pockets and look at it. This catches the attention of everyone, but Rebecca is the first one to ask, mister, what's that note? I look up from the note. Oh, there are special rules that apply to god cards. I was just checking if promised consort Raiden would just ignore marauding captain's effect. My eyes read the list as my words cause the brothers to sweat a little. Okay, from the rule it seems I need understand the wording on marauding captain, so, would you say it clearly, Mufasa? I say with an evil smile. In a worried tone he takes the card off the duel disc and reads it out loud. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target warrior monsters for attacks, except this one. He places it back on his dual disc. My smile drops slightly before I reread the note. The consort doesn't ignore it. It seems since it's a rule effect, it activates at the start of each turn. I just shrug. In desperation, Mufasa places all of the cards he can on the field face down, before ending his turn. Rebecca draws. She looks at her cards before looking at the Elden God card. The pair of Maris will increase my life points more, but for my turn I'll summon a monster face down in defense before equipping the big guy with a ring of magnetism. Rebecca's LP, 4,400 greater than 4,800. Ring of magnetism spell / equip. At her words I look at the note again and then tilt my head before nodding to Rebecca, which tells her it goes though. Promised consort Raiden ATK 10500 10,000 / def 3,000 2,500. I can't do anything else, sorry mister, so I'll end my turn. Scar scowls when it becomes his turn, but he draws a card. This makes him happy. From my hand I'll activate a card of Demise. To increase my hand back up to 5. He draws to 5, oh that's good, I'll activate a Graceful Charity I just drew. Graceful Charity spell. Lucky me, it seems this will work. I'll discard 2 before I'll play Mustering of the Dark Scorpions from my hand. Mustering of the Dark Scorpions spell. Dark Scorpion, Meanie the Thorn Dark Warrior / effect ATK 1000 / def 1800. Dark Scorpion, Chick the Yellow Dark Warrior / effect ATK 1000 / def 1000. Dark Scorpion, Cliff the Trap Remover Dark Warrior / effect ATK 1200 / def 1000. Dark Scorpion, Gorg the Strong Dark Warrior / effect ATK 1800 / def 1500. Coming from his hand he actually places all 4 of the other Dark Scorpions, so the whole gang is won the field with Don Zalug. Next I'll flip my face down, Dark Scorpion combination. This allows all of my Dark Scorpions to attack directly but at reduced damage. Dark Scorpion combination trap. I look at the card and then come to a realization, but Scar doesn't notice in time as he declares an attack towards Rebecca using his Gorg the Strong. Gorg with a roar, charges at Rebecca and ignores the face down monster, but as he's about to strike at her, a black blade appears to block the strike. Gorg looks up and sees Promised Consort Raiden looking down at the thief strongman like he's a noob tarnished. Promised Consort Raiden using his other blade swings in a horizontal swipe. The swipe picks up Grog and sends him flying into the other Dark Scorpions, who form a large mass which strike at Scar, reducing his LP to 0. Scar is knocked over by the blow but he's still conscious. I speak to explain. Ring of Magnetism makes it so if a monster attacks, the equipped monster becomes the target of the attack. Direct attacks don't negate that since it's still an attack. Scar's LP, 2700 0. Scar loses. Mufasa starts to sweat since he's alone against the Elden God card, and with Scar's loss it's now my turn again. I shrug before drawing a card and simply playing 1 card on the field from my hand. Mesmer's Flame spell. I'll target both of your marauding captains. With this we have won, and since I don't want to have Rebecca see you explode, I would suggest surrendering now. Mufasa realizes he's been defeated when his captains both become piles of ash. He places his hand over the deck and surrenders. Mufasa surrenders. Drogan and Rebecca win. Chapter 26, Chapter 26, There are more god cards, Day. The faces of the pair of brothers were grim as they know Marik doesn't accept failure for their mission. I return all the cards back to the deck before storing it in my trench coat. The illusionary forms of Moog, Raiden, and Miquella appear. Raiden scowls and looks at Miquella. Just so you know, I didn't like it. The experience of being in a lighter body than I'm used to was just weird, even with the amount of mindfuckery Miquella was doing just to keep me sane. I look at Miquella, who looks a little drained but happy. I just give him a look before saying mentally, "How much mindfuckery?" He responds with a flat palm that he shakes, "A moderate amount." It was mainly having to balance the consciousness of Raiden with the instincts of Moog. Moog actually pips in at this. "Is that why I don't remember it, but I can feel an echo of the experience," he says with a shrug. "No idea, it's his body, maybe he felt something like what Godwin did in his dead body." Me and Rebecca start to walk towards the pair of brothers, who are panicking while we approach. I smile at the idea that they're scared of the little girl, but I know it's just me. "Well, you lost, but you made me play my god card so good on you, but it was mainly Rebecca who set it up," I say with a shrug. Scar, the one which seems more volatile of the pair, yells that shouldn't exist. There should only be 3 god cards, yours must be a fake. Wait, that must have meant you're cheating, so the duel is void, ha. I look at the brother and give him the look of looking at an idiot, but I sigh and turn towards Rebecca. "Hey Rebecca, you probably got taught by your grandfather, but was Egypt the only civilization during that time period?" Rebecca looks confused at the question, but she answers in her confusion, no, there were others. The only one I can remember on the top of my head were the Hittites, who had all the tin during that era that was used to make bronze, which they used for weapons. Her answer makes the brothers confused as well. My point of the question is that Egypt wasn't the only civilization. Other nations could have used dual monsters, and said nations had their own gods, so why assume there are only Egyptian god cards? The simple statement stumps the pair of brothers. I continue, it doesn't make sense when you take into account that Egypt's territory is mainly static to the region around the Nile. If they had god cards behind them, why not take over the world, or at least the Fertile Crescent? Simple, the surrounding nations had powers on par with the god cards to rebuff their advance, making other god cards possible in the grand scheme of things. The step-by-step theory causes the gears in the heads of the brothers to turn. Regardless, you just don't pull out a god card like it's a common sight. Hell, if we knew you had one, we would have been more careful. Mufasa says. That makes me laugh lightly. Oh yeah, that would certainly be the case, but that's why it'll remain a secret. My words cause the pair of brothers to worry. That won't be possible, you just summoned a god card. Marik and Odeon would be able to sense it. Scar says in a hurry. I just smirk and take a step towards them. Oh yeah, that would certainly be the case if I didn't create a spiritual perception barrier around us before the duel. Marik, Odeon, and Ishizu would be come at me screaming sacrilege or something stupid. Too bad Marik's a man-child, Odeon has no backbone, and Ishizu already lost her ability to mess with me. My words cause rage and fear to grow in their hearts as they realize only they and Rebecca know I have a god card currently, and Rebecca doesn't know the significance of that piece of information. Rebecca speaks up and questions me. Who are these guys anyway? I get they're not here for the tournament really, but why try and kidnap me and Teddy? I look at her and see the teddy bear in her hand which she's nuzzling. Oh, that's simple. They're a bunch of people who follow the orders of the world's biggest man-child, who thinks having 3 very strong dual monster cards would allow him to rule the world. Newsflash, they won't. Currently Yugimoto, Seto Kaiba, and their boss Marik Ishtar each control one of those 3, so Marik is doing everything in his twisted mind to try and get the others ones, even though he lost one to Yugi in a major blunder like an hour ago. She giggles at that. He sounds like a man-child, doesn't he, Teddy? She then starts to pantomime using in the teddy. Yes, he does, Rebecca. He sounds like his has no friends as well. I turn to the brothers and give a side eye to the girl who's talking to herself, dissing someone for having no friends. Well, anyway, there are multiple ways I could deal with you two, but I think I'll just do the old natural method. This causes the pair of brothers to start trying to run away in fear, thinking I'm gonna kill them. In a sense I am, since they're both brainwashed outside of the barrier, but when they turn around I simply grab them both by the head with a single hand each and do some spiritual lobotomy. I do the same as I did for Guinevere and remove the brand Marik has on their minds, breaking them free of the brainwashing. I'm getting better at it since I don't give them spirit sight. The process is way quicker. Maybe summoning one of the god cards loosened my spiritual veins or something mumbo jumbo like that. I must have though of something like that, since even Miquella responds. Yeah, it kind of did. This catches my attention as I finish the spiritual lobotomies. What's changed? Oh well, when my god card form was summoned, it broke some of the spiritual muscles within your body due to the sheer density of the card's spiritual strength. Now the duel is over, the muscles have essentially regrown and become tougher. It's enough that I feel I can actually form the god card for another deck now. Just to make it clear, you spoke earlier about deck cores and the lot. I assume the deck core are essentially god cards themselves. Yes and no, it's not fully clear since I can sense there are decks without god cards. They have cards of equivalent strength but they're not god cards. I know one of them is at least this twin-headed dragon who keeps prodding at me to get his deck ready without helping me with forming its core when it's a jumbled incoherent mess. Oh, Dragon Lord Placidusax, yeah, don't worry, patience is something he has in spades. Happens when you're the Elden Lord over a timeless race like the dragons. I can hear Miquella's gulp even when he's not here. A dragon Elden Lord, and you, though it not prudent to inform me of this fact. I shrug before turning to Rebecca. So Rebecca, do you still have plans for the tournament even though it's just a veil for people just stealing each other's cards at the top? This snaps Rebecca from her self-conversation with the teddy bear. I'm still in. I won't lose to the likes of Seto Kaiba, and if I beat him and Marik I can just give the big mean god cards to Yugi since I don't think I would like them. I tilt my head and think for a second before coming to a decision. I can't make you stop, but as a warning, your grandfather's deck won't be able to beat Kaiba. His god card has an attack of 4000, it would require your ghoul to have over 24 monsters in the grave while having protection from the god card's effect, which is a board wipe. This causes Rebecca to frown at the statement. But I continue to speak. But at the cost for a favor I'll cash in the future, I can give you a deck strong enough to fight against Kaiba's Dense Obelisk and Marik's Mega Ultra Chicken, maybe even beat Yugi's Sky Noodle. She looks at me with her wide eyes in curiosity, she simply says in full seriousness. I'm interested. Chapter 27, Side Chapter 1, Angelic Crusade. To be honest, she wasn't 100% on the idea of having to get into the finals so late in comparison with everyone else, but she chose she needed revenge and she was one determined person. Guinevere sighs after her third victory using her new deck. She knows her luck seems to be on her side today with the meeting with the trenchcoat man, and the deck she's running is just overwhelming all these contestants. She looks at the 5 crystal map cards in her possession and closes her eyes in contemplation. That last duel was annoying, but now I only need to duel one more time. It helps that most of the duelists here are nerds and so think that I would have something feminine like harpies or maybe Amazon cards. The last person even said out loud when I played agents when I used my sanctuary in the Skyfield card, but no one expected a flying paladin. She smirks and looks for her next opponent. The surrounding area is completely swarming with duelists like an ant's nest. It's surprising no one has gotten up to 6 crystal cards yet even with all the duels. When she arrived here she quickly noticed that most of the remaining duelists had around 3 to 4 cards, but they're being very protective of their cards, making it so they essentially were trying to find weak targets but in the end not dueling anyone since everyone at the same level of skill and deck strength, so she played the victim and robbed them blind. But with her last target, most of them have wizened up to her play act and all are turning away from her. To be honest, her act was terrible and she just copied the face of Eva to try and develop pity, but nothing lasts forever. The little grey alien seems to like sitting on her shoulder, and since they weigh nothing it doesn't bother her. She looks around and spots some people who could still be in the game, but they all turn away from her when she approaches. She was starting to get annoyed until a new quartet of duelists came to the plaza. They had cocky looks on their faces like they were the top dogs and that they would win the tournament even though they were all pre-teens. They seemed to be a team, but when they entered the plaza they seemed to do a group discussion before separating. The cockiest of the lot with a slicked back head of auburn hair wearing tinted glasses approaches Guinevere. Yo, are you still in the tournament? The street punk says bluntly while addressing her. She simply responds with a nod of her head. I challenge you to a duel then, let's get this on and over with. Guinevere turns to the punk and says, sure, let's duel, you can call me Guinevere, you. He readies his duel disc and aims it at her. You can call me Blaze because I'm gonna smoke your deck, baby. Duel start. Guinevere's LP, 4000. Blaze's LP, 4000. Well, since you challenged me I'll go first, I'll draw. She pauses for a second looking at her cards. From my hand, I'll activate Hecatress, and discard it to add a card from my deck to my hand, which I'll play immediately. Sending one to the grave and receiving the card she quickly places it in her duel disc. Hecatress Light Fairy / Effect ATK 1500 / Def 1100. I'll play Valhalla, Hall of the Fallen. This allows me once per turn to special summon a fairy monster to the field as long as my field is empty, which it is, so I'll special summon Air Knight Parshath to the field in ATK mode. Valhalla, Hall of the Fallen spell / continuous. Air Knight Parshath Light Fairy / Effect ATK 1900 / Def 1400. In a flash of light, white pillars with arches of flowing red silk appear. The silk flutters in the wind and a knight in blue and white with gold hair appears from behind the fluttering silk. And before I end my turn I'll summon a monster face down and place a spell or trap face down. With her field secure with a strong monster she ends the turn letting Blaze start his assault. I draw. Nice, from my hand, I'll activate a Blaze Accelerator. In a flash of light what seems to be a sci-fi tennis ball launcher on a tripod appears aiming at Guinevere. Blaze Accelerator spell / continuous. Then I'll discard one monster from my hand to activate my accelerator. This allows me to destroy one monster on your field and I'll get rid of your knight. The card in his hand seems to set alight and fly towards the machine. It enters the chamber and in quickly launched directly at Parshath. It hits him and turns him into a ball of fire with all of his exposed wings and hair. Next I'll use my Volcanic Shells effect from the graveyard, for at the cost of 500 LP I can add more ammo to my hand for my accelerator. Blaze smirks before taking a card from his deck. Volcanic Shell Fire Pyro / Effect ATK 100 / Def 0. Blaze's LP, 4000 greater than 3500. Now with more ammo in my hand, I'll summon a face-down monster and 2 face-downs before ending my turn. With a smirk at beating her knight, he ends his turn. Guinevere draws and looks at the card, her face twists in annoyance before revealing a card from her hand. From my hand, I'll discard Zeradios, Herald of Heaven, to add the Sanctuary in the Sky to my hand, which I'll play. The form of a masked man appears with giant green wings. he spreads them far apart and in a flash of light, the surroundings have changed to a sea of clouds with a temple-like structure floating in the sky behind Guinevere. Zeradios, Herald of Heaven Light Fairy /Effect ATK 2100/Def 800. The Sanctuary in the Sky spell /field. With that on the field, I'll flip the monster on the field and play a spell card from my hand which I just drew. The card on the field flips to reveal an angelic figure in a toga, but the key part is the spell card she played which depicts the 5 Ojima members holding hands together. Shining Angel Light Fairy /Effect ATK 1400/Def 800. Solidarity spell /continuous. Shining Angel ATK 1400 greater than 2200. The angel's wingspan increases with his strength and he floats on her field as a bigger threat than before. Now Shining Angel strike down his face down. The angel rises into the air and produces a ball of light which then condenses into a beam of light straight to the face down. It flips to reveal a small reptile in a metal cone-like shell. It offers little protection as the beam just vaporizes the creature in one strike. UFO Turtle Fire Machine /Effect ATK 1400/Def 1200. Still smirking Blaze starts to speak. When UFO Turtle is destroyed I can summon a fire monster with 1500 or less ATK, I'll special summon from my deck Volcanic Trooper, whose on summon effect is to allow me to add a volcanic card from my deck to my hand. Like a phoenix, the ashes from where the UFO Turtle is vaporized igniting into a being of bronze armor and flames appears holding a bronze ancient-looking pistol. At its appearance Blaze adds a card to his hand. Volcanic Trooper Fire Pyro /Effect ATK 1000/Def 1000. Seeing his field still stable Guinevere isn't happy but she ends her turn allowing Blaze to go. Blaze draws. I'll start this turn by using Volcanic Shell's effect again in the grave to add more ammo to my hand. Blaze's LP 3500 3000. Now I'll activate Blaze Accelerator to defeat your angel by discarding what I just drew. The mortar on a tripod activates again and causes the angel to become a meteor in the sky falling to the ground and disappearing in flames. I'll have my trooper attack directly so we're equal again. The massive bronze and fire aims its pistol at Guinevere and fires at her hitting her directly. Guinevere's LP 4000 3000. And before I end my turn I'll use my trooper's other effect to special summon onto your field a bomb token which when destroyed causes you damage for the cost of one card from my hand. Bomb token Fire token /Effect ATK 1000/Def 1000. This causes Guinevere to scowl more since that acts as both a time bomb and a block stopping Valhalla if she drew a strong monster. Blaze ended his turn so Guinevere drew for her turn. I'll play the Pot of Greed I just drew to draw 2 more cards. Pot of Greed spell. She looks at her new cards and gains a plan. I'll summon from my hand Cupid Volley in attack mode. Due to solidarity her attack would become more than your trooper. Cupid Volley Light Fairy /Effect ATK 600 1400/Def 600. A green-haired woman in a white cloak over a pink sportswear dress appears with a bow bigger than her torso. The bow's arrows are pointed with a star which glows with great energy. Once she's on the field Guinevere pauses for a second to think but then she feels 2 light taps on her cheek spiritually. She trusts her new companion before activating Cupid Volley's effect. I'll use Cupid Volley's effect to increase its level by 2 but I have to send the top 2 cards of my deck to the grave. The bow carried by the angel seems to glow as star-shaped grooves in the bow glow to indicate the increase in level. Guinevere discards the 2 cards and smiles at the pair of cards sent. Visa's Samsara Eva. Nice, I activate Eva from the graveyard which I just sent it to. Eva allows me to remove 2 light fairies from my graveyard from play to allow me to add 2 fairies to my hand from the deck. She sends her Air Knight Parshath and Shining Angel to the grave since Visa's has used still. Now I'll have my Cupid Volley attack your trooper. Cupid Volley draws her bow before aiming at the sky and releases her arrow. The arrow produces light as it flies in the sky and goes directly to the trooper but as it's about to hit a light cyan energy shield appears around the trooper absorbing the arrow's power. I'll activate my face down, draining shield, to stop the attack as well as increase my LP by the attack of your monster. Draining shield trap. Blaze's LP, 3000 greater than 4400. With the battle over Guinevere simply looks annoyed as she swaps the bomb to the defense position before placing 1 card face down in her back line before giving it back to Blaze. Blaze draws his card and smiles at the card. I'll tribute summon my trooper to special summon my Pyrotech Mech Shiryu in attack position. Pyrotech Mech Shiryu Fire Pyro /Effect ATK 2900/Def 1800. The trooper on the field seems to be in pain as it crumples forward gripping at its chest but after a while the flames of the trooper take on a pinkish-purple blaze which starts to warp and darken the bronze armor of the trooper. the armor warps and melts before becoming avian in design with motifs of black and purple marks upon the burned material. The pyrotech mech coils in the sky like Slifer and looks at the temple in the sky as if it's an insult to its sky. Nope. Guinevere simply reveals a card she just played. Compulsory evacuation device trap GTFO. The giant evil mech phoenix simply gets sent back to Blaze's hand. Everyone around can see that his tinted glasses are a bit crooked at that play. He growls in annoyance before pivoting. I'll play my face down Swords of Revealing Light, to block you from attacking for 3 turns. Swords of Revealing Light spell / continuous. The Swords of Light appear to form a bulwark against Guinevere, but with that in place, Blaze ends his turn. Guinevere draws, she looks at her hand and the field before coming up with a plan, but the swords block her plan, so she waits. She summons a monster face down in defense and a face down card in her back line before ending her turn to Blaze. Blaze seems slightly confused at her silence, but he assumes she just bricked or something before doing his own turn. He draws a card and looks happy at it. I'll play a card of Sanctity to refuel my hand back up to 6, you're allowed to do the same. Card of Sanctity spell. The pair refill their hands and Blaze smiles at the cards in his hand. Nice. Well, first off I'll activate my Blaze Accelerator again to discard my Volcanic Scattershot monster. I'm telling you about the monster since its effect activates. When it is sent to the graveyard by Blaze Accelerator, it allows me to send 2 copies of it from the deck to the grave to destroy all monsters on the field while dealing a total of 1500 damage to you. Also, since the bomb token is destroyed as well, you take 500 more. The Blaze Accelerator starts to glow red as it charges the Great Blast. In no time at all it fires a cone of shrapnel and flame, destroying everything on Guinevere's field. The flames strike at her, dealing a lot of damage in the process. Volcanic Scattershot Fire Pyro / Effect ATK 500 / Def 0. Guinevere's LP, 3000 greater than 2500. Looking at the change in her life points, Blaze looks confused, but Guinevere explains, when Cupid Volley is destroyed by your card effect, she increases my life points by 1500, so in total, I only took 500. Blaze looks slightly miffed that his big blast didn't have as big of an impact as he expected. He just continues. Anyway, with your field now clear, I'll summon another Volcanic Trooper to end this duel. The Trooper of Fire and Flame appears again on the field and readies his pistol towards Guinevere. In response to your summon, I'll activate a trap card. I activate Manadium Breakheart, which allows me to special summon from my graveyard a monster, and the monster in question is Visa's Samsara. Manadium Breakheart Trap. Visa's Samsara Light Fairy / Tuner, / Effect ATK 1500 2300 / Def 2100. As a continuation of Manadium Breakheart, it allows me to destroy one of your monsters with less ATK than my summoned monster, so no trooper. The ground beneath the trooper splits open to reveal a strip of the night sky beneath it. From the slit of space, a knight in black armor and tattered cloaks appears with a silver blade and cuts the trooper down where it stands. The trooper crumples to the ground as a pile of metal before Visas gets forced from that side of the field as a fleet of glowing swords hounds him. With dexterity he dodges and escapes the blades onto Guinevere's field. Blaze seems to scowl at this, but he speaks, well, at least the effect of Volcanic Trooper gives me a volcanic card to my hand. I'll play 2 cards face down before ending my turn. With it being her turn again, and this time with more cards, she smiles. Let's change the board one last time, shall we? I'll play from my hand Harpy's Feather Duster. At her words, Blaze becomes worried as his field is covered in a flurry of feathers. Each feather is white, appearing from somewhere before impacting against his Swords of Light and his Blaze Accelerator before destroying them and his face down Sakuretsu's armor. Harpy's Feather Duster spell. Now that I'm no longer bound by the swords, I'll end this duel now. First of all, I'll summon from my hand Herald of Orange Light. A metal ball-like fairy appears and produces a large amount of orange light like a miniature sun. Herald of Orange Light Light Fairy / Tuner / Effect ATK 300 1100 / Def 500. Now from my hand, I'll play a Monster Reborn. And I'll use it to summon the face-down monster you destroyed before on the field. The dramatic effects of Monster Reborn occur to revive a woman in a white robe with wings of rainbow light behind her, which seems to enhance the light effect of the Herald of Orange Light, which floats to be next to her. Diviner of the Herald Light Fairy / Tuner / Effect ATK 500 1300 / Def 300. Now I'll use Visa's Samsara effect to make him a non-tuner monster, so I can then tune him with Herald of Orange Light to synchro summon Manadium Trisukta. The robotic herald flies into the air before disintegrating to form 2 rings of light, and Visas with a smile and flourish of his sword jumps into the rings before disappearing as well, becoming a quartet of stars. Blaze's eyes behind his glasses widen and he yells, "What's going on? What the hell is a synchro summon?" Guinevere speaks with an annoyed tone since she's had to explain it every time she did it. It's a form of special summon like fusion, but instead of a polymerization needed, some monsters can start it instead. At the end of her words, the synchro summons finishes and a female knight in glowing armor appears on the field. Manadium Trisupta Light Fairy / Tuner / Effect ATK 2330 Def 1300. Well, I will admit she's powerful, but I guess that she does more. Blaze speaks, thinking he won't lose due to this card. You're correct there, as her effect allows her to special summon a level 2 or lower tuner monster from the graveyard. BTW tuner monsters are the ones which allow synchro summoning. Anyway, from my graveyard I'll return Herald of Orange Light to the field. Her field is full of colorful monsters, but even Blaze can tell it's not the end of her play. I now synchro summon using Manadium Trisupta as the tuner and my other monsters as the materials. To synchro summon Manadium Prime Heart, the Knight, Oracle, and Herald each jump into the air to create the rings and stars, which in total reach 10 in total. The rings and stars combined within the air to become a one golden ring that burns with rampant light energy within that light ring. Though there is 3 nodes of light, the very ground beneath the ring starts to crack and crumble as the effect for forming a golem of stone shards and metal forms into a titan-like being which looms down at Blaze. Manadium Prime Heart Light Fairy / Effect ATK 3300 / Def 3000. The Titan of Stone and Light catches everyone's attention, maybe due to its uniqueness or the fact its ATK is over blue eye level in scale. Now Prime Heart attack Blaze directly. The Titan starts to float like it doesn't weigh anything before disappearing and reappearing behind Blaze and striking down heavily like a falling piano before Blaze could react. Blaze's LP, 4400-600. Blaze smiles since he survived. That means he could still win this and it wouldn't end like she said, since direct damage spells were banned in the Dual City tournament. But he looks at her and realizes she's still smiling. Now Prime Heart's effect activates. It's allowed to attack equal to the number of tuners that were used to synchro summon it. In this case, it's equal to 3. Her words are like a bucket of water on Blaze's ambitions as he notices the Titan is still behind him, looking down at him menacingly. He can't even say anything before the fist of the Titan strikes down and takes the remainder of his life points. Blaze's LP 600-0. Guinevere wins. And that is Guinevere's last victory needed to enter the finals, but out of sight of her, a tanned man wearing dark robes watches her without her notice. Chapter 28, Chapter 27, New Decks. To those who didn't know, there was a deck vote on the 11th to determine the next deck vote, and by a landslide of 79 vote in comparison to the other decks, the chosen deck is the Star Scorn Siblings. The Moon Sisters got 24 votes and the Mesmer's Massacre deck got 40 votes. If you voted for either of these two, don't worry, they will appear in the next deck vote, alongside a new deck to join the pickable roster. Now back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. Drogan's POV. Hearing she's interested, I just smile on the inside at manipulating impressionable youths in the setting. I know Rebecca is a very strong duel list, but her deck choices are terrible. The ghoul deck she uses is heavily reliant on a level 5 monster with no actual supporting framework besides a ton of card drop into the grave. That would work for before the Battle City rules, but it's now different. Well, in my possession I have access to many decks that could be of use to you, but I would have to assume you would have a preference. She turns to the side and give me a glare from the side. Well, I don't know what you have, so I don't know if my idea of a good deck would be there. Also, I won't believe you would have so many good decks on you. At this I chuckle lightly. Oh, Rebecca, that won't be a problem. With her attention on me, I flourish my hand and a card made of light appears between my fingertips. In it is a purple fusion card that she's never seen before. Gladiator Beast and Abata Dark Beast Warrior / Fusion / Effect ATK 1000 / Def 2800. I can make them on the fly, so it's mainly just your preference. This makes Rebecca blink sometimes before making a scrunched up thinking face like most kids do. Is there a deck that treats the graveyard like an extra recourse? Also, I want a lot of power, so at least having a monster with 3000 ATK points. Her words make me think, but as having every Yu-Gi-Oh card in my head would make it so I would have to go through a lot of chaff to get the right answer, I simply get Miquella to work on it. You know, this is highly demeaning having to work as your gopher on this. I take a thinking pose in front of Rebecca and think to Miquella. I know, but it has to be you, since besides Ronnie and maybe Melina, none of the others have experience with the mindscape. You could ask them to help. I know Melina is very cooperative. I can sense that Miquella does what I said and asks the pair of female demigods for help. Melina shrugs and goes to help, but Ronnie, being Ronnie, simply crosses her arms in contemplation before they have a conversation which I take notice of. I'm willing to help, but I have a request. What is it? You know I can't do anything too great of a request at the moment, so what? Oh, it's quite simple really. I know you finally fished up one of the god cores needed to form a new deck without telling our host. You were going to hold onto it and try and regain some power, but I wish to have it and reappear in the world. This causes Miquella to pause in shock as I feel myself get slightly angry before sighing in front of Rebecca. Just gonna say it, Miquella, you're not the best of bros. I can sense Miquella sputtering in rage and agitation at his side hustle being revealed. Arg, fine, but I can't give you your own deck. I can sense that the effects of Rune of Destined Death made it so your current form isn't strong enough to hold a full core. In my mind I can see the pair of demigods facing each other and Miquella revealing a orb of roiling light in front of him towards Ronnie. She reaches towards the orb and places her palm in front of it. The orb takes on two distinct hues, one is a rippling effect over a white background and the other is a black background with a purple comet speeding rapidly. From the god core, it's giving me some minor information. It seems you can share the core in two forms, one seems to be involved with your mother while the other is with Raiden. At hearing his, Raiden appears in the scene and looks at the pair of siblings, his form towering over the pair, but across the pair from Raiden the siblings, see an outline of a woman with a tall pointy hat. The Carrion siblings have looks of sadness at her appearance, but Ronnie is the first to speak. Is she fully aware of the world around us, or is she still in her mental cocoon? She says with sadness. Miquella responds with little tact. I've tried to pull her out of the soul maelstrom multiple times, but each time she rebuffed me. Just now she even rebuffing the god core by not appearing fully but in this spirit form. Everyone's attention is on her form, but like a ghost she says wisp like only when my love returns before turning around and fading into wisps of light. Well, it seems she's decided for you, does make me question why Marika or Radagon aren't here in spirit form. My comment causes the demigods to think about that as well, but Miquella with a face of annoyance simply says one thing. They're at the center of the maelstrom where it's the most turbulent. Maliketh is with them there. No idea why or for what reason there, but I can tell it would cost too much to just pull them straight out, but if I was able to use a god core like with Renala to fish them out, it should pull them out, but it's just a theory. This new info causes the present demigods to have faces of shock that their parents and uncle who are at the pinnacle of their past world seem to be the most trapped, but to me it's just like in the game. Maliketh was trapped in his biggest failure and Radagon/Marika were trapped in the Erd tree. Well, it seems in the end there are only one option left. It seems we must work together like in the past, brother. Ronnie says this and looks at her older brother. With annoyance at the situation he nods his head. I can feel he at least prefers to be in a deck where he isn't lobotomized. Miquella hands the god core to Ronnie, who holds it to her brother, who touches it with her. The connection is formed and between then the god core fades and in between them a rune is formed. It's Raiden's great rune, but as it's revealed it appears that there a full additional circle in addition to the rune. At the appearance of the rune I come to a realization. Oh yeah, Ronnie cast away her great rune as well. She probably had the great rune of magic. I envision the Elden Ring rune and use Raiden's rune to place Ronnie's. Using that I overlay it to the great rune and find where it's meant to be. Its location is the same as Godric's rune and is a full circle to connect the interceptions of the great rune. Examining Godric's I realize the great rune of magnetism's actually the interception points with a faded connection between them. The great rune of magic is meant to be where the faded line is. I missed it since it's essentially an overlap, like how Raiden's and Rykard are the same location overlapping. The rune of magic and mass appear over one of the pockets of my trench coat and Ronnie goes searching for the card with Miquella. To be honest, it doesn't take long until the trio reappear and present a full deck with a single card flip to be revealed. Judgment Dragon Light Dragon /Effect ATK 3000 Def 2600. At its appearance I recognize the archetype being the Lightsworn. I shrug before manifesting the deck for Rebecca, but when I do so the spiritual strain is actually daunting as it comes to my attention that each of the Lightsworn cards are spiritual cards, meaning I need to make like 23 spirit cards. Once the deck is in my hand it catches Rebecca's attention, but before I hand it to her, I look through the cards and extract 3 of them for her. Hey, if that's the deck you're gonna give me, why are you taking some out? She says in a mini tantrum. I look at her with a face of annoyance, but I sigh before responding with as much patience as a single mother while fanning the 3 cards in her view. Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn Michael, the Arch Lightsworn. Well, some of the cards in this new deck aren't standard. Each type of the cards are color-coded as either black or white, so they're distinct, but I have to show you a tuner to show you. The next few minutes are just me teaching the Intercontinental Champion on how to duel like a relatively modern duel list, just without hand traps. After the explanation her eyes are sparkling in the sheer power of the cards in her hand, but since she has a deck with like 23 spiritual cards and I know she's actually very isolated, I make a decision for her. Well, that's all of the stuff about how the Lightsworn deck works, so there are only one thing left to do. She looks up from looking at her new deck and tilts her head in confusion. What do you mean? Before she can react further, I simply poke her on the forehead and say, BOOP. The poke itself is filled with spiritual magic, and since I did it before, I do it again and unlock her spiritual sight so she can now interact with her new cards. The process makes her eyes roll in her head at the influx of energy, but she doesn't fall over. That should preoccupy her mind for a small while, so while that happens I'll just drop Scar and Mufasa in a bin somewhere and leave a crystal map card for her. I do this silently. I take one of my own crystal map cards on the floor for Rebecca before picking up the pair. It's easy to carry both of them since the reducing their mass is possible with the Elden ring. Once at a dumpster I pocket their crystal map cards and realize they had 4 on the pair of them. It seems I won't need to do any more legwork for the tournament, but since I have one left over I simply return to Rebecca and plant it next to my card before leaving. I exit the parking complex by taking out the newest deck from my trench coat. I look at the topmost card and laugh lightly at the card since it makes sense since Ronnie can't make use of the God Core, so she needs a champion. Moonlit Tarnished Lord Dark God /XYZ/effect ATK/def. I feel the clasp of a gloved hand on my shoulder and look to the side and see the face of a right bastard. Well, hello chum, I feel we're about to have the best of times. I can feel it right down in my soul, I do. Patches says with his condescending smirk gracing his lips. Creator's thoughts. Here's Rebecca's deck. Main deck. 1x Punishment Dragon. 1x Judgment Dragon. 1x Gregonith, Lightsworn Dragon. 1x Celestia, Lightsworn Angel. 1x Wolf, Lightsworn Beast. 1x Garrote, Lightsworn Warrior. 1x Jane, Lightsworn Paladin. 1x Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn. 1x Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress. 1x Aaron, Lightsworn Monk. 1x Lightsworn Dragonling. 1x Fellis, Lightsworn Archer. 1x Jennies, Lightsworn Mender. 1x Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend. 1x Lumina, Lightsworn Summoner. 1x Minerva, Lightsworn Maiden. 1x Shire, Lightsworn Spirit. 1x Raikou, Lightsworn Hunter. 2x Solar Recharge. 2x March of the Dark Brigade. 1x Twilight Twin Dragons. 2x Pot of Avarice. 2x Charge of the Light Brigade. 1x Lightsworn Sanctuary. 2x Lightsworn Saber. 2x Beckoning Light. 2x Lightsworn Aegis. 2x Twilight Eraser. 2x Twilight Cloth. 2x Lightsworn Barrier. Extra Deck. 1x Judgment, the Dragon of Heaven. 1x Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn. 1x Michael, the Arch Lightsworn. 1x Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn. 1x Enlightenment Dragon. Chapter 29, Chapter 28. The Man, the Myth, the Bastard. Turning my head to spot the bald miscreant known as Patches, I wasn't expecting his appearance, especially when Ronnie and Raiden's deck become available. The most unnerving thing about his appearance is that I can tell he's not just a spirit, he's semi-corporeal. It's been a while, but I would guess you don't mind that since I know you're a very patient and persistent person. He rubs his nose and smirks under his hand. You know me already chum, we'll got together like a sword and shield. I smirk in response, oh I have no doubt about that, but I just need to check something. This causes Patches' face to become confused before spreading his arms out dramatically. Ask away, I'm an open book, nary a blot on my pages. I laugh at the repeat misleader's jokes before simply saying the name of 4 locations while counting my fingers while looking at him. Nexus, Firelink Shrine, the Ringed City and Yaharnam. Each name causes his eyes to flinch before he looks at me again with a more interested look. It seems you're an experienced individual like me. I could tell there was more behind your eyes than most would see, but to know of my past escapades, it just proves you're smarter than most. We just smirk like the pair of trolls we are. There's only 3 things I want from you, but they depends if you kept some souvenirs from your escapades. This causes Patches to squint his eyes and smiles at me before responding cockily. Maybe, it depends, I don't think some sharp implements would be welcome around here if that's what you're asking. I lean my head to the side, oh I don't need weapons, the cards alone are strong enough to have me covered in that avenue, but what I want are one of a pair of bells you might have in your sticky fingers and a spice-coated ring from your overarching adventures. This causes the face of Patches to morph into a grump expression. Why not rob me of house and home, my friend? You want some prime articles here and want to pay zilch, no dice. I smirk before speaking with a laugh. One thing that will never change about you is that at the core of your being, You're a right cheapskate. This causes him to regain his smirk. At least I don't try and cover it up, like priests and those lot. I just shrug, before looking away. What do you want for the bells and ring? At my words the greedy bastard's grin becomes ear to ear. I owe a few people some favors and for it I feel there should be a single object you could get me which I could use to pay off the debt. Give me one of those energy things you used to pull me from that mess in your head and you can have them. This causes me to pause at the sheer audacity of the request. Patches want to trade for a god core. I start to rub the bridge of my nose and look at him. Who is it for? With a look of complete seriousness he says, Volcano Manor and Lady Tanith. When Patches gets serious it means he means it. She must have saved his skin to get this big of a debt from him like what the Ashen One does in the Ringed City. I can't promise it but, in the future when the next one becomes available I'll consider the option. Patches closes his eyes thinking that's the best he can hope for. Anyway pal, could you explain this world to me? It's weird being in a world without things trying to stab you every minuet. I think for a second before searching though the new deck to reveal a certain monster card. Trusty Patches Dark Warrior /Tuner /Effect ATK 1200 /Def 1800. This world is way past the sword and arrow era of combat, but for some reason there's a sub-world of monsters like in HAREM, but unlike HAREM the monsters aren't as crazy while only appearing in the forms of these cards which are used in a game against others. Each card is different and in your case you're in the form of a monster, but with these cards can be possessed by the monsters from the sub-world, that's your current situation. He just nods along to the explanation. Look at that handsome fella, well tell me pal, is my card good or bad in this game? I'm just curious. I read the card and tilt my head in confusion. Well I won't say it's bad, but I know your card is at least good but I'm not sure if it's an ace card since a lot of the text in it speaks about interacting with Tarnished Lord like it's a group. He tilts his head in confusion, you make it sound like it's not meant to be a group. It's not since this world's peak cards are our god card level in power and the only Tarnished Lord I currently have is Moonlit Tarnished Lord. I reveal the god card to Patches, but as I show it to him, I come to a realization. In Elden Ring there have only been really 4 gods, Miquella /Raiden /Moke, Marika /Radagon, Malenia and the Tarnished. If it takes a god core to make a deck which reasonably has a god card connected to them, they either need to have someone of divine power or strength to hold the deck together. The demigods have enough of strength and will to form the decks, but it's a fact that they don't work together outside of some exceptions. If a deck has a pair of demigods within it, they would fight for the god core of the deck metaphorically. This though caused me to come to a very interesting theory. If the demigods metaphorically clash in a deck it creates a shattering scenario where a Tarnished Lord card becomes the god card of the deck like what happened in the game. Miquella, next time you get a god core, try and examine the god card of a deck between a pair of the demigods would be like, maybe Moke and Morgott. I mentally whisper to him. I get back the spiritual equivalent of a shrug. I just had a theory but if it's correct, you're more useful than a lot of cards in my possession but I'm getting ahead of myself. I know you don't like to stay in one place for too long so, I won't stop you from getting up to your usual antics, but if I summon you don't ditch me like at the Raiden festival. Patches shrugs before grinning. Oh don't worry chum, I won't do anything of the sort, we're thick as thieves we are, I'll always have you back, but I think I'll go have some fun around town maybe make some coin, you know me. I have an evil idea, I go to the dumpster which houses the pair of Mufasa and Scar and find them still unconscious, I nick Scar's deck of Dark Scorpion cards and walk away. I palm the deck and looks at Patches who looks at it in curiosity. I explain. During the tournament, there's an anti-rule in place for the most rare card. I know an entrepreneur like yourself would make headway with a band of thieves at his back, so here. As I hand it over to Patches I make 5 of the Dark Scorpion cards in the deck into the spirit card version summoning the dual spirits. Patches watches as the 5 thieves appear with a grin. Oh I knew we were gonna be friends from day one. As he says this I essentially mind dumps the rules and how to play Yu-Gi-Oh in his head before walking off to Kaiba Corp Stadium which is currently being built. Have fun and oh if you find some people in black robes with gold eye symbols, I don't like them and they're working for a priest who wants to kill children, so do with that information as you want. Patches starts laughing as I can tell he goes off to do what he does best. Mess with people who think they can control the world around them, while making a profit of their misery. Chapter 30, Chapter 29 Meeting a Artist. My path towards the stadium building is uneventful but it's mainly just returning towards the direction of the Kaiba Corp building, so I don't get lost. I will say I'm not bored since while I travel to the stadium, I'm looking through the new deck and finding some interesting cards. To be honest, I was skeptical when I saw there were 2 different field cards, but the more I looked at the deck it made sense to me. The Raiden side of the deck works akin to the Rainbow Beast deck in a way that makes it so the monsters can easily come back if they're defeated without the need of revival spells like Monster Reborn, for an endless slog of monsters. While the Ronnie side of the deck works to summon her to the field, but incidentally when I looked at Ronnie's card I was both shocked at how scary her card was and intrigued at a similarity I found between the siblings. Lunar Princess Ronnie Water Spellcaster /XYZ /Effect ATK 3000 /Def 4500. Examining the card, the similarity isn't as pronounced, but when you compare the two it turns out they're both rank 6 XYZ cards, so by coincidence the support to summon Ronnie also applies to the summoning of Raiden for level 6 monsters. Another interesting card I found just makes me laugh due to it being as broken as the card I was worrying about from the Rot deck. Let's just say once it's played the main characters will not like me very much. As I think this, I notice I'm passing right by Kaiba Tower now towards the stadium, and I have a quick thought before smirking. I turn 90 degrees and walk directly towards the tower. Using my new credentials and some very subtle magic, aka a ton of perception blocking magic since everyone is magic blind, I'm able to get to the Kaiba Corp server room. Once there I know that the tournament's data and stuff are stored on the servers, so I just want to have a light play with Kaiba's shiny toys. I could go on and on, with how I hacked the mainframe or implanted a virus in the system, but to be honest I simply just changed 5 things. An 8 to a 16, the intended route for the blimp to make more time, using some of Kaiba's money to buy more slots for the TV presence of the duels and timing of the duels in the finals to correspond to the TV changes, and lastly one last surprise. The tournament was set up to be an 8-person final, but now with more people having viable decks due to my influence, 8 slots won't be enough, so the next bracket is 16 to double the fun. To be honest I just want to see the look on Kaiba's face when he learns about the change. I walk out of the server room with a look of pure malicious glee and start to walk out of the building, but halfway I hear the sound of a chopper coming towards the building. Interested, I use my perception blocking to spy my way to the top of the building. There I spot a certain figure I wasn't expected to see. Dressed in a dark red suit with white trim is a silver-haired redesigner of dual monsters as a concept. From where I am I can feel the amount of spiritual energy within him is vast, but in a crippled state, maybe due to losing the Millennium Eye. But in my opinion, and pun intended, the Millennium Eye was blinding him, so good riddance. I watch him walk into the rooftop foyer, and even though I'm in a perception blocking barrier his face locks onto mine and smirks a little. I squint my eyes but then come to a decision. I let go of the perception blocking barrier covering me. This makes me appear suddenly to everyone. The least surprised is Pegasus, who smiles in interest. The many guards of both Kaiba Corp and presumably Pegasus's guards are both shocked at my appearance and are confused about what to do. Hello everyone, please, point a gun at me if it makes you relax. You are only human. This causes the squad of trained men to take out their guns and point them at me. Pegasus, with a voice like velvet cake and a cheery tone, starts to speak. Well, now this is an interesting surprise, and oh do I love surprises. I say your entrance was as spontaneous as it was dramatic, I say, but it begs the question, how are you and what do you want? I let the man speak, mainly because I have as much flair for the dramatic as him, but I respond when he asks, since he isn't someone you just ignore. Well, I could go by many names as people of our standing should, but you can simply call me Drogan. And for the reason I'm here is because I want to mess with Seto Kaiba, but don't worry, it isn't in a harmful way but more in a blindsiding him with a prank sort of way, I say with a jester's grin on my lips as I speak. Oh, a practical joke on Kaiba boy, I must know. He says quickly, since I know he's a child at heart, but he quickly places a hand to his lips in a gesture of thinking. No wait, it'll be better if I don't know, since he would suspect me, and I could simply say I wasn't aware of it to double the impact. I tilt my head to the side and some guns follow the movement, that's why I'm being vague about it. Oh, that reminds me, to every Kaiba Corp guard who doesn't tell him it's coming, I'll give you a bonus for your next paycheck. This causes around 70% of the guards here to flinch before looking at me with some confusion, but Pegasus, being the artistic genius he is, realizes something and his face takes on a glum expression. So, you're the new partner for Kaiba Corp. Well, that saves having to grill the Kaiba brothers about the notice about percentage change I got, and here I was about to find Kaiba boy and ask him about it, but now that I'm here I'll just watch the tournament from a ringside seat so the trip isn't fully a waste. With a more regulated tone, I say. I made a deal with Mokuba, Seto has no idea. This causes Pegasus to simply explode in laughter, since I can tell that will mess with Seto massively. Oh, you are a right devil at hitting Kaiba where it hurts, my new friend, but to be honest I still have a query about something. I shrug, Ask away, it's not like it doesn't hurt to ask. Pegasus starts to walk through the foyer to enter the building, but he continues to speak. Well, I'm curious what you could offer little Mokuba to make him make such a deal. This causes me to mentally pause for a second before coming to a decision and start following him through the building by walking in tandem with him, all the while the guards who have by this point lowered their guns look at me nervously. I simply offered to give him a deck of cards that would be better than his brother's deck, minus the god card of course. This causes Maximilian Pegasus to frown. That was a very steep price indeed, since a deck of that quality is hard to come by. Tell me, was it hard to part with such a deck? I smirk before opening my trench coat to reveal the multiple deck pouches beneath it. Not really, when it wasn't even a deck I use. When the decks are revealed, their spiritual signature becomes revealed. Pegasus, who to be honest must have some remnant of the Millennium's eye power, should be able to at least feel the signature. Oh my, those decks remind me of some very powerful cards, but I assume you already know that. But that begs the question, if you are strong enough to hold those things back, why are you here speaking with me? It makes me giddy with curiosity just thinking of the possibilities. My smile is ear to ear. Well, yes, there is one thing I could have your help with. It's kind of like a transaction of sorts. At this, the eye of Pegasus sharpens and the joyful adult fades and the shrewd CEO makes his appearance. What would this deal entail? I let the side sew of my trench coat drop to contain the signature again. As you can assume, these decks are made using cards you haven't seen before. This is mainly due to my circumstances, but due to the same circumstances I have the ability to form cards directly from the Shadow Realm. Meaning cards that you would probably design in the future. My words cause his calm facade to crack as the implications of those words cause him to imagine the possibilities. I don't believe you, but I am open to the idea, so I would assume what you are offering me would be the information about these cards, allowing me to make them in the future. I flourish my hand and manifest a card I had Miquella search for since I saw Pegasus and came up with this plan. I palm the card and reveal it to Pegasus. With the other I manifest another item, but keep it hidden in my pocket. Toon Kingdom spell/field. The sight of the Toon Field card, which he knows he hasn't made, makes him both happy and apprehensive. Ah, I wanted to design that, but I guess having it now isn't the worst thing, but that at least proves your side of the deal. You still haven't said what you want from me. I shrug. I would like to do the same deal as Mokuba with Kaiba Corp, so 20% of industrial illusion, but I'll go down to 15% if you play along by saying all my unique cards are legal. Also make it so the information I give you would be just their names and overarching archetype details, so you can design the cards yourself. My deal makes Pegasus think about it, but the more he thinks about it, the more it sounds appealing to him, since he lost the Millennium Eye, and he had to use that to peer into the Shadow Realm to get those monster details. It doesn't take long before we are able to get a pair of contracts with our names on it for the discussed deal. After signing it, Pegasus comes towards me with a smile. You have a deal, my new business partner. He turns to me and extends his arm in a handshake. Sure, also this is a freebie. I go to shake his hand, and while he makes a look of confusion, I grab his wrist and pull him towards me. With my other hand, which holds a small glowing orb I hid before in my pocket, I quickly insert it into the head of Pegasus. The pain of the implantation makes him recoil and make distance between us, and the guards around us react and aim their guns at me again, but they don't shoot yet. Pegasus staggers back in his pain and I speak. It's not the Millennium Eye, but I think you would prefer to see the world in more depth than others. Pegasus stands up straight with a look of anger before realizing his point of view is different. He quickly looks at one of his guards and says, "Mirror, now." The guard, who probably carries it so he can use it when he needs to touch his appearance up when needed, presents him with a beauty kit which Pegasus opens. In the reflection of a mirror in the kit's frame, he sees his normal immaculate appearance, but underneath his silver bangs, he can see a faint golden glow. He parts his bangs to now see his new eye, which instead of having a normal pupil is imprinted with the symbol of the Elden ring. In his shock, he looks towards me but finds I left with my copy of the contract in the time it took for him to get over the shock of having a new eye. Today is shaping up to become more interesting than I ever expected it to be. I wonder what Drogan boy will do next. Chapter 31, Side Chapter 2, The Hyena Laughs at the Dogs. Third-person POV. You know, being dropped into a fully unknown world with little to no knowledge about the world around them. But for a resourceful character to like Patches, it's just like a big fish transferring from the lake to the ocean. The only problem is that this ocean is extra salty in comparison to his past oceans, so the taste is extra bitter. He can smell it on the wind that this world is run on the concept of greed, be it greed for wealth or greed for power. For a world where there are those blinded by greed, it needs people of greater purposes like Patches to fix the world. Usually with a swift kick from a cliff, but since this world seems to lack natural vertical landscapes, he knows he will have to adapt. To be honest, Patches using the pilfered deck from the Rare Hunter Scar was just having a bash and brawl though the back alleys beating Rare Hunters left and right. He's so effective that he's already at 6 crystal map cards which the info dump he got told him were used for the tournament. Now you might be curious how the sneaky bastard was able to do this so quickly, or in any case hunt down so many Rare Hunters so quickly. Simple, a rat knows where rats hide, and since he got the info dump of all the rules his knowledge of the game is ironclad like his great shield. It also helps that he figured out he could get the Dark Scorpions to cheat by just phasing though the opponent's deck before telling him their hands and next draws. Knowledge is power, and power in the hand of malicious bastard is a recipe for trouble, so he exploded both the rules and the spirits to just curb stomp the Rare Hunters into the ground. Patches the ever vigilant also got some information from the Rare Hunters he beat and figured something was going on at the docks, so he goes towards there, but on the way he finds an interesting sight. He sees a brown spike-headed teen running frantically with a girl with eyes wrapped in bandages. The most interesting part of the situation is that they're being chased by a trio of Rare Hunters. Now Patches is many things. He's a manipulative bastard, he's a cheapskate and would sell someone out if the deal was good enough. You could call him diabolical or malicious, but even he has morals. One of those is that he repays his debts and is willing to turn over a new leaf in a pinch, but another one is that he doesn't go out of his way to target the helpless even if it would be easy. So, the sight of 3 grown adults hunting a teen and a blind girl makes him angry, and an angry Patches isn't a good scenario of many parties. Patches follows the chase and catches up to them as the Rare Hunters do a pincer maneuver as one of them is able to take a shortcut and cut of their escape route in a tunnel. He followed that individual, so he's behind the blocking Rare Hunter. He watches as the 3 confront the pair and intimidate them. The biggest twist to Patches is that some spiky-haired teen with a headband walks right by him and throws some dice at the Rare Hunters. He's surprised that actually stopped their advance and made an opening where the pair escape the tunnel towards where the headband-wearing teen is, and they all start to run past Patches, who's at the tunnel entrance. Tisk, tisk, here I am about to stick my neck out for some snot-nosed brats, and then another snot-nosed brat steals my thunder. It's just unfair, I say. My words catch the running trio and cause confused faces to them to appear. They turn around and bear witness to the techniques of a man who survived and thrived during uncountable apocalypse-level scenarios, as he's able to beat up each of the Rare Hunters with just his fists and some cheeky kicks between the legs. Tristan and Duke are just standing there with their jaws agape, as this bald dude beats them up. After Patches leaves the Rare Hunters in a pile of painful body parts, he turns to the trio and introduces himself. Hello there, I saw you were in a spot of trouble. Now I'm not one for sticking my nose into others' business, but a respectable businessman like me has standards, and it would break my heart if was to watch a blind damsel be taken advantage of like that. Tristan with a weary look at Patches, thanks, that's for both of you. We were in trouble, and while I could have taken them on, I couldn't while keeping Serenity safe. At his words, Serenity nods and says a quiet thanks you too, and you Tristan for keeping me safe, but I don't recognize your voices, so who are you? Before Patches can speak, Duke speaks up and introduces himself to the girl. Patches can easily tell he's gained a crush for her, but he just rolls his eyes. Love is meaningless for someone like him, gets in the way he thinks. Well, my dear, you can call me Trusty Patches. I'm a dashing rogue who simply knows his way around the business end of street brawl. If you find anything interesting, give me a shout and I'll come running. Patches turns away from the trio before going back towards the Rare Hunter's mound. This confuses the trio and Duke asks, "What are you doing?" With a confident smirk, Patches looks over his shoulder at the trio of teens. Looting some treasure, obviously. They're called Rare Hunters for a reason. The cards they have on them are valuable. So, I'm just taking my fair due. The trio of teens look at the rogue in curiosity before having a conversation amongst themselves. By the time Patches is done, he comes out of the tunnel to them, realizing that the Rare Hunters are after their friends probably. Tristan looks at Patches. Hey Patches, you called these guys Rare Hunters before. Would you happen to know where their base is? Patches with a smirk that senses an opportunity says, well, I have some experience with the criminal underworld and some hints that could be useful, but I was gonna check it out myself, but I could use some extra eyes, while I case the scene. Either they were too focused on him knowing the possible location or too worried about their friends they didn't catch his slip up. But Duke simply asks, where's the base then? And Patches responds with, the docks. The 4 of them make their way there. It's more the trio are going there, and Patches follow them since he's still new to the city. It doesn't take long, but Patches wasn't expecting to see a suicide pact in the process. The trio charge at the scene and start screaming names, but sensing a sticky situation, Patches keeps the shadows and listens in. Luckily a small kid fills in the trio with the situation and Patches grins at coming up with a plan. Everyone starts to focus on both the duel and trying to snap the taller kid from some mind control. So, while everyone's distracted, Patches does what he does best and skulks around, specifically to the opposite side of a mechanical crane they have, threatening a dame locked in a chair. Knowing how this song and dance goes, he sneaks up to the machine all rogue-like. When the guy in the crane gets out of the cabin, his focus is on everyone else and doesn't notice Patches squatting on the canopy of the crane just above him. The looks on everyone's face at the appearance of Patches is funny to him, but the guy must be a narcissist because they somehow don't give Patches away. Patches watched the duel and waits for the perfect time when it seems the brainwashing was resisted by the blonde teen. Taking that as his cue, Patches jumps from the canopy of the crane to drop kick the grunt. The drop kick sends the grunt sprawling and sending the device flying away so he can't trigger the crane. Seeing no reason not to, Patches just starts wailing on the nameless grunt until he's unconscious. The sight of the violence must have stunned the teens into silence, but for Patches he simply walks to the dame, presses some obvious buttons and she's now free. Patches just smirks at the kids before going to turn around and leave since he's done his good deeds for the day. But as he starts walking away, he hears the sound of something heavy entering the water. He looks back to see the hanging anchor which was between the pair of teens has gone underwater. He now sees the blind girl, no longer blinded by her raps, be the only one to jump into the water to save them. Slightly grumbling about how he always has to do everything, Patches turns around and runs at the water before diving into the sea. He finds within the water the tall blonde teen tugging at his chain fruitlessly while the girl dives down to get him. He swims to them, and when he gets to the pair, the blonde's unconscious and the girl is having trouble carry him up, so Patches gets under the lat and takes most of the weight so the three of them can surface. When they're free of the water, the girl starts breathing, but Patches notices the lat isn't. He swims the pair to the dock where the brown-haired teen lifts the blonde from the water. The girl and Patches get out of the water, but as expected of teenagers, they have no idea how to save a drowned person. They simply laid the teen on his back before fussing over him. Patches rolls his eyes before pushing past the lot and flipping the teen onto his side before pumping the blonde teen's chest from above in a rhythm to let his body expel the water. After a few compressions, the teen's airways clears with a gasp and he starts to groan while water leaks from his mouth. Patches keeps at it until the amount of water is little. At that point he looks around at everyone before indicating to make some room. They do a small shuffle to make some room before Patches rolls the teen onto his other side and repeats the process again. Once the water stops, Patches stops the compressions before laying the teen on his back with his breathing regular. Patches wipes the sweat on his brow from the exertion and hears the groaning of the teen waking up. With a smile and smirk, Patches watches the teen wake up, and the first thing Joey sees after nearly drowning is Patches' big nose in his face. Welcome back amongst the living sunshine. The weather is great, I would say perfect weather for a dip in the ocean and all, but don't bring the anchor next time, okay? The look on Joey's face is a mix between bewilderment and shock, since he has no idea who this guy is and why does he think he can make jokes about his near death. Oh, I know the look on that face. Were you expecting to be revived from death's grasp by a beautiful nurse or graying doctor? Well, sorry chum, the world isn't that perfect. None of your associates knew better, so I had to step in. Oh, by the way, you owe me a debt in the future. Joey just lays on the dock and looks around to see the worried faces of his friends and the stern face of Seto Kaiba. Well, anyway, you lot seem to have this all in hand, so I'll take my departure and let you lot catch up. Just remember, if you ever need a deviously handsome rogue, think of me, trusty Patches. I'll find you if I'm free. Patches, like a squall, simply gets up and starts walking along the docks, going towards some warehouses that are prime locations to find some merchandise. The last thing Patches hears from the group is the small spiky-haired kid saying, "Who the hell was that guy?" Chapter 32, Chapter 30 Spoilers. After pulling the slip on Pegasus, I still wander around Kaiba Corp since the sun is still out. I gain an evil idea and start to exit the building before going to the Kaiba Corp's private airport. Now you might not believe they would have a private airport, but Kaiba Corp was previously a weapons manufacturer with a lot of logistics needed, so to facilitate those logistics they have their own airport strip. Now I use my current access to hitch a ride on the still docked blimp to beat having to wait in a dark and dusty stadium for the tournament to reach the next stage. Not a minute too soon, since the blimp ascends into the sky just after I get on it. Sensing the perfect opportunity, I quickly run through the ship and quickly go to change my clothes to a pilot's outfit with a captain's hat to finish the outfit. It turns out if I want to change my clothes, my trench coat can morph into what I want if I have it in front of me. I do so and now look like a pilot. I travel back though the blimp to the entryway and wait for the blimp to arrive at the stadium at the intended time. Time takes its sweet time, but I fill the gap by having a conversation with the grumpiest person in the land between. I honestly had no idea what you were thinking. I know you treated the Erd Tree like your parent, but you really did nothing important besides be a bulwark for the weakest demigod. You could have just taken the great rune of magnetism in the first place. With a scowl on his face, Morgott replies, at some point I did have that though, but if I did, the multitude of Tarnished would have become unpredictable. They would do things that would have caused damage to the whole lands between instead of said damage being concentrated on a single highly defendable castle. Maybe, but if you remember, a normal Tarnished couldn't enter Lindell until they had a pair of the great runes. If you took Godric's rune, it would have forced a paradigm shift. It would have forced the Tarnished to go for the 3 other great runes on offer, which would have been impossible if multiple people went for them. He squints his eyes in curiosity. Explain. I scowl as well before counting down with some fingers to emphasize. The 3 runes left would have been Rena's, Rykard's or Raiden's rune. I'll explain in that order. Rhea Lucaria was magically locked with a glintstone key which is soul-bound. There was only one available key in the land between being guarded by a glintstone dragon. Once the key was taken, no other Tarnished would get into Rhea Lucaria. Rykard was being protected by Volcano Manor, which can only be accessed normally via Altus Plateau. While possible to get to due to a mining tunnel, it would make them have to pass through 2 obvious checkpoint locations. If you stationed your Knights Cavalry at those locations on a rotation with some Erd Tree sentinels, then there would be no way for a Tarnished to get past. Raiden is in Saelid. Saelid is a hellscape, so they would have had to contend with mutated wildlife, scarlet rot, dragons from the Dragon Barrow, and Raiden's knights in a heavily fortified castle with a single path of assault. Then this is all before having to fight Raiden head-on. And lastly, if you took Godric's rune without anyone noticing, the Tarnished would have gone to assault Stormvale Castle pointlessly without you needing to do anything. You might have not known this, but if the site of grace the Tarnished have is static, pointing only at the big castles, if the great rune is taken, the lines of grace remain, so they don't track the great rune just where it was once. The shattering became a stalemate. With each argument, the face of Morgott flinches at the realization he wasted so much effort for no point. There was really only 2 ways into Lindell. Taking Godric's rune, you blocked the easier of the pair. This causes Morgott to look at me with his eye in confusion. What do you mean? There shouldn't be a way into Lindell. One of the first thing I did during the shattering was to break the warp gates into Lindell. The only one I left was the one connected to the fortified manor, which I kept unusable as a passage if not approaching from within Lindell. I smirk. Well, you missed one, but you didn't need to worry about that entrance since it was guarded behind Fortisax, who was at that point infused with Death Blight, making its breath into a form of Death Blight mist and its lightning being infused with Death Blight. This causes all of the demigods to actually flinch at the idea of an ancient dragon with those capabilities, but the one most affected is Godwin, who's crying with a grand smile. I turn the demigod, and he wipes his eyes. I was hoping my friend wouldn't have died, but being like that was torture, and that was for someone bound by time. For a timeless dragon like him, it should have been endless agony. I close my eyes and think for a second. Miquella, can you get Fortisax from the maelstrom? Miquella looks at me, then his brother. The dragons aren't being very cooperative. Xix was a hassle, but maybe he might be an exception to that rule. Miquella fade in form, and after a few moments of silence, the sound of striking lightning is heard through the whole blimp. The whole ship starts to shake as more thunderous booms are heard around the blimp. As I start to feel like the blimp might actually be affected by the lightning strikes, a black glowing mass of energy emerges from my body. It forms scaled claws before clawing itself out of me like a xenomorph. Once fully out, it turns around, and me and demigods all see a man-sized black dragon whose form is covered in black brambles which have pierced its black scales. The dragon stares at the group, but he focuses on a certain individual, and before the demigods react, it lunges at the form of the mermaid demigod. Everyone watches as the dragon goes to attack Godwin. They even see the expression on Godwin's face, which is a mix of happiness at seeing his old friend and acceptance at whatever the dragon would do to him, so he doesn't resist. The dragon grabs the mermaid demigod with both of his claws and holds the demigods to his face. Everyone is silent and doesn't move in the thought that the dragon has Godwin in a hostage situation. But the dragon doesn't care about the others. He lets out a grand roar into the face of Godwin, stunning everyone, Godwin the most due to his proximity. Once everyone recovers from the stun, they're stunned again at the sight before them. Fortisax's form is now coiled around the form of Godwin, supporting him, so he's now at standing height instead of laying on the side, it akin to a hug but more supportive. Godwin is the most shocked as he looks to the side and sees the eye of Fortisax and realizes something. You should have just left me to rot, my friend. I am not worth of all the pain and torment you took on for my sake when I was already dead, and now after all that time alone and in pain you don't even have a mote of rage against me. The dragon doesn't make a noise, but Godwin can tell his old friend's thoughts with just a look. I see, my friend. I am not worthy of your friendship, but I am filled with joy at getting to fight by your side again, even if we're both in such different forms. Let's never separate again, since even death itself can't keep us apart any longer. The dragon simply lets off a low growl in agreement. The demigods are silent at the reunited pair, but the whole blimp shakes as it lands in the stadium. I sort out my tie and get ready for some fun. Chapter 30, Reuniting the Interspecies Best Friends. Chapter 33, Chapter 31. I dub thee the Hindenburg. I hide and wait for the blimp to let the gangplank down. When it does, I drop the perception barrier and stand in front of the entrance. Once it's fully down, I see the full cast for the finals, and one of them is shocked at my appearance, but the pair of guards who are flanking the stairs speaks unaware of my presence since they're facing the wrong way. In a stern voice, Guard 1 speaks, "We'll depart once the 8th duel list arrives." In a German accent I speak, "Yes, yes, while we wait for them, come join us on the SS. Hindenburg." Everyone is gaping like goldfish, but Kaiba is just scowling at my appearance. I start waking down, and speaking, "I'll be your captain this evening. I have no plane flying license, but you don't need one for a blimp." I smirk at the lot, and everyone is looking at the Kaiba pair for clarification. Sito is grumpy and Mokuba's face is full of dread, before realizing something and tries to stop his brother, but... "You're definitely not the pilot. I don't remember hiring a clown for a pilot." Sito speaks. Mokuba pauses for a second before sighing. I take on a confused face and speak, "Well, I remember signing a contract with one Kaiba brother which had a clause I was to be employed as any non-essential personnel such as a co-pilot, and if I was rejected from my chosen position I would be placed as head of public relations." I take out the contract Mokuba signed and a magnifying glass which had a clause. Kaiba is shocked for a second before scowling. "That's not legally binding, I never signed that." "Oh yes you did, you signed it electronically earlier today, here's your signature and everything." I move the magnifying glass to the signature, which simply reads Sito Kaiba but in a cursive font. With his signature in full view, his eyes sharpen and turns towards his little brother, who at this point has ran onto the ship to hide. He passes beside me and runs into the blimp with haste. Kaiba starts to stare daggers at me. "Okay, you're fired then." I shrug before moving the magnifying glass, which makes it so the contract can't be broken or changed for the next 2 months, so he can't fire me unless I want to leave willingly. The look on his face is priceless. I go ahead, "Don't worry, I won't do anything harmful. This was a transaction and Mokuba get the better part of the deal in my opinion." I roll up the contract and place into my coat pocket before taking out 6 security cards for the blimp and fan them to the group. Now, as the acting head of public relations, I would like to announce that I'm hyping this tournament up. Instead of 8 duelists, the finals will have 16 contestants. My words cause Kaiba to look at me in shock and annoyance at me messing with his tournament. While everyone else is in shock, I whisper to him, "I've sorted out all the logistics already, nothing will really change besides taking a bit longer, it just means you have more time to plan to take the god cards." I return to the ground before letting the group walk into the blimp. When each of them pass me, they each give me a look which I just reply with a smile. Once they're all on, I wait for the remaining duelists to arrive with the guards. The next person to arrive is Ishizu, wearing a cloth veil to hide her appearance, but is obvious it's her. "Hello miss, please present your locator cards for inspection with one of my associates." I indicate with the guard. Not recognizing me, she just nods and goes to the guard, who hands over the last normal blimp pass, letting her on the blimp. It doesn't take long, but I hear the sound of a rushing female duelist enters into the arena. It's Guinevere with a flush face from exertion. I just look at her and laugh as well as grin. "Let me guess, you were on the other side of town when you activated the locator cards to find out that it was here." She just staggers over to me and simply says, "Drop the grin or I'll drop it for you." "Well, anyway, you're lucky. If I didn't literally change the rules like 10 minuets ago, you would have been barred from the finals. Now show your locator cards to the guards and get on." She does that and I spot the next person to arrive. It's another female duelist, being Rebecca Hawkins. She's less breathless, but I can tell she had to run while lugging her duel disc. "Hello Rebecca, just show your locator cards to the guard and you're in the tournament." This situation repeats as 3 more duelists arrive to join the lot. I flinch since I recognize one of them as that Golden Castle of Stromberg kid, so that's why he wasn't in the finals, he was just late. With only 1 pass left, I look to the bleachers of the arena and say, "You can come out now, this is the last one, mate." Stepping out of the shadows like a ghost is Patches with his distinctive smirk, which I mirror on my own face. He walks past me and I just hand him the last one before turning around and going towards the blimp. Once of the guards addresses Patches to get his locator cards he probably stole, which I don't care about. The other guard comes to me and addresses me. "ERM, sir? Aren't we waiting for the 15th and 16th duelists to arrive?" I smile and whisper into his ear. I lean back after telling him, "Don't tell anyone, it'll be our little secret, don't tell the Kaiba siblings and I'll give you a bonus on your next paycheck." "I see, sir, that makes sense, let's set off." I walk next to Patches and wrap my arm around his shoulder and he does the same. The pair of trolls walk into the blimp and written on the side of the entrance compartment in bold red paint reads, "Welcome to the Hindenburg, no crashes since 1938. Chapter 34, Chapter 32 Unexpected Arrivals. With everyone now on the blimp, it starts to take off and both me and Patches make our way through the blimp. While chuckling at each other we find the main hall with a ball selecting machine and we both look at each other with malicious grins. While the room is unattended, we both approach the device and make some modifications to the machine and balls, mainly adding 8 more balls to the machine while making the balls funnier. With our work done, we nod to each other and depart towards the most sound to find a viewing area to look down at Domino City. The main cast is here, and my arrival is at the same time Kaiba leaves the compartment from another entrance, probably looking for his brother. My appearance with Patches catches most of the people out, but our identical grins make most of them realize we're related in some way. I look at the group and reconnect names and faces since I have only met Yugi at this point, but by our approach, they all look at me and Patches weirdly. Patches is the first one to speak. "What's with all the glum faces, kids? It's like you saw a ghost." He turns to face me. Maybe it's the sight of my pal's ugly mug. I know not everyone can have such great look like me, but it's not something to gawk at. As he says this, he rubs his bald dome. I look at him with my eye twitching in annoyance. Joey is the first to speak, mainly since he's the most assertive of the bunch. "You should look at yourself in the mirror, but your pal is the biggest mystery, mainly at how he can easily trick Kaiba." I look at the Gambler King and just shrug. I just did one of Patches's techniques against Sito, just strike while they were already distracted. He's so focused on the god cards that it was simple to use his greed against him. At the end of that, Patches just nods at the acceptance at using his tactics to catch the big fish. He mock wipes his eyes and says, "You make me so proud." Well, you learn something when having 5 impactful lessons really kicks you into gear to learn the trade. In my words, the inside joke causes both me and Patches to laugh, which disturbs the group. After me and Patches stop laughing, a brown-haired girl with long hair approaches Patches and speaks to him. "ERM, your name is Patches, right?" Patches, looking mock offended, says, "It's trusty Patches, my dear. Throughout my career I've never betrayed a promise, so I like to keep the title." The girl, who I am realizing is Serenity, holds Patches' hand and says, "Thank you for saving my brother. We didn't know what to do then. You just brought him back, thank you." I look at Patches since it seems he's already had a run-in with the cast before and even saved Joey in some way. I then remember the anchor duel and just shrug. I wrap my hand around Patches' back to rest on his shoulder and speak, "Oh trusty Patches the hero, isn't that an oxymoron?" Patches look at me with a sneer, "And what's that meant to imply, chum?" "Oh, it's just we both know you're a moron and can be as stubborn as an ox when you want to be." This causes Patches to squint at me. "You have no proof." I simply say 3 words with a smug smile on my face, "Grere, Onion Knight." He looks at me and laughs. I laugh with him before using his free hand to sucker punch me in the gut. At the impact I feel something get shaken loose and start to feel sick. I take a step back and caress my stomach from the wheeziness. Everyone looks confused at my actions, but in the distance, I see a trash can, so I run for it since I feel really sick. I rush to it and start to vomit into the trash can, but I don't feel any vomit but instead some sort of spiritual energy. It feels both burning hot and spicy as it exits my mouth. After my expulsion of spiritual energy, remaining visible in the trash can are 4 cards, 4 very unnatural cards which I never thought would appear even with the Elden Ring cards I can make. The Firekeeper Fire Saint / effect ATK 0 / def 0. The Ashen One Fire Warrior / effect ATK 2400 / def 2000. Choice of the First Flame Trap. The Lord of Cinders Fire God / fusion / effect ATK / def 2500. The sight of these cards makes me both happy and confused since these aren't Elden Ring cards, they're Dark Souls cards, all from the 3rd installment. I reach into the trash can and go to grab the cards, but as I touch them, I feel my hand start to burn. Ouch! My words cause a lot of people to focus on me more than they were already. I look at my fingers to see it's not really damaged, but I can feel a light fading burning sensation on my fingertips. It fades quickly. I look at the cards and watch as they move on their own and lay out in a triangle formation in the trash can, fusion on top, trap in the middle, then the pair of destined partners to form the bottom corner of the triangle. Within the trash, a line of embers writes under the formation in cursive words which I can't read. Yo Patches, can you read this? My words cause him to break from his revelry at my misfortune before coming over and looking into the trash can. Well damn, I didn't know you could get those lot, I reply with a spooked look. I didn't either, but anyway, can you read this script? Patches looks at it and reads it. Yup, it's Lithric script. It reads only those with a will unbreakable and eyes who can look to the future unburdened may harness the flame's last embers. Once he reads it, he tries to grab one of the cards and gets a similar reaction. Ouch. I snicker at him and his misfortune. Unbreakable Patches, my arse, remember your need for fixing in the ringed city so you're not applicable. Well bugger. At this point we notice that was now surrounded by the rest of the main cast. Tristan looks at us with a curious look. What's got you so worked up? Was his vomit that interesting that you needed to touch it? I speak, well, my situation is very special, and it appears Patches caused something that wasn't meant to happen. Miquella, tell me, what the hell happened here? When the marauder friend of yours punched you, it dislodged a clot that was in the maelstrom. It was like a cancer growth in the maelstrom. It was malignant, alive off the spirit energy but wasn't doing anything, so I left it. You essentially just spat the clot out and it manifested as those cards. I just shrug. Well, it turns out we have a sword in the stone situation here. Some of you might be interested in it due to the fusion. I step away and Patches follows me. Joey, being the most curious, sticks his head in and screams as he reads it, "Hey Yugi, it's a fudging god card in here." Without caution or remembering how me and Patches both burned ourselves, he reaches into the trash can and goes for the card. Ouch. His hand returns out of the trash can, and he puts it to his lips, nursing his finger. It burned me. I nudge Patches. Makes sense for a Lord of Cinders. Patches smirks at me and we just watch them interact with the cards. The next person to try is Yugi, who reaches into it. For some reason he doesn't make a sound, but when his hand returns it's empty. The next person is Bakura, who is being possessed by the thief. He reaches in and gets a burnt hand. Everyone is confused at this since the only duelists of the group have failed, but Duke, feeling cocky, tries to get the card, but his hand burns. The next person is Tristan, who shrugs before going for it, for the same result. Watching everyone who was willing to try and fail, I came up with a thought and looked at a specific person. I then point at Serenity. You try it, I have a theory. This causes everyone to look at me and Serenity looks at me and then at the trash can, and I notice something in her eyes. She's drawn to them for some reason. Then Joey reacts, not pleased at my suggestion. Why Serenity? She's not even a duelist and she's not forced to if she doesn't want to. I look at Joey. Have a little faith. Also, it's not like the heat is permanent. If she touches and nothing happens, nothing happens. You should ease up a little, friend. Serenity steps up to the trash can and reaches into it. She doesn't make a sound, but when her hand is pulled out containing 4 cards within her grasp. Interesting, very interesting. You can keep them, but know they have a life of their own, so if you feel something from them, don't just dismiss it as a flight of fancy. I start to walk away towards the innards of the blimp, but Patches remain with the group. With a look of confusion, Serenity turns towards Patches and asks, "What are these cards? Why is everyone looking at me like I'm strange, and why do I feel a gentle warmth from these cards?" Patches sighs before reaching towards her and holding a lock of her hair so she can see. It's smoldering like lit ashes at the tips. Within your hands is a god card for a world that's been burned to just ashes via decay and renewal of a great flame. The whole point of this tournament is for the winner to get 3 of such god cards, and you just got 1 for semi-free without effort. She looks at Patches with eyes that now have a tint of red and blue with them. How do you know that? Patches just smirks. I'm just well-traveled, my dear. I know many things that would curl your toes if I told you about them, but that's a tale for story time later. Same as me. He starts to swagger out of the room. His departure signals for the group to make for their rooms to prepare for the finals. Within the Wheeler room, the pair of siblings are talking mainly about how amazing the room and view are, but after a while, Joey is preparing in the chair, thinking as unusual as it is for the finals and what they entail, when he hears his sister speak. "Joey, you know these cards that the pilot guy gave me? Are they good?" This causes Joey to look at his sister, who presents the cards to him. He looks at them and nods. "Well, yeah, this blindfolded chick can't be destroyed and acts as a draw machine. This night guy hits like a rolling boulder, picking up momentum with the more he hits. Then this fusion god card is just sheer force in card form." She hears her brother's words and looks at them, then with eyes full of determination, she hands them to her brother. You can use them since I'm not a dual list yet. Joey looks at his sister and sees her determination and goes to touch the cards but is hesitant since they're his sister's cards and he was just burned recently for touching them. But he musters his courage before taking the cards. He feels a warmth on his hands from their touch but it's now akin to his hands being heated by a close bonfire instead of in the flames as before. At this point, Joey's friends start to invade the room and make a mess of it and order room service distracting Joey from the new cards. After a while an intercom announcement is heard throughout the blimp to amass the contestants in the main room. As they all exit the room, Serenity feels something within the room and standing in the middle is hazy figure of a woman with pale golden hair with a silver crown which covers her eyes. She hears as if whispers on the wind the woman's voice, "Us embers will follow your will, but we will await the day you grasp the remnants of the first flame yourself with great anticipation." Confused at her words, Serenity watches as the woman fades away like turning to dust before disappearing. Serenity closes her eyes and goes to catch up with her brother and his friends. Creator's thoughts. I really wanted to just pull out a Dark Souls set, and had an idea. I might not should have. But may read it if you want, I can't force you, or stop you. Chapter 35, Chapter 33 Placement Prank. The contestants all gather in the main room besides Ishizu who can see the previous future and doesn't realize she needs to be here, her loss anyway. Everyone is partaking in the buffet of the main room, though Joey's partaking alone is worth 3 normal people. After a while of letting the duelists mingle and stuff their faces, a light show occurs and brings attention to a device that's at the main point of the room. One of the black-glassed guards arrive and stand with the device to their back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to determine the distribution of the finalists. Behind me this machine will produce a ball with a number corresponding with the number on your key card. When the pair of duelists have been chosen they will duel, and once their duel is over we will return to this room to determine the next duel fixing. He lets the duelists look at the device with looks like a bingo machine. It has a fogged glass case which the balls are vaguely see them though. The bottom of the device is blue eyes themed with a pair of spouts for the balls to be dispensed. The guard produces a remote and presses a button on it. This causes the balls in the device to start to dance on the jets of air. The machine lights up the interior of the glass ball to show the dancing ball's shadows before one is seen entering a tube in the center of the device. A few seconds later the ball is produced from one of the dragon head spouts and the guard walks up to the machine and grabs the ball. He looks at it with confusion before revealing it to the duelists. The ball that was expected to contain a number instead is actually a transparent sphere with a 2D image of a blank human head which depending on the light is being encroached by markings from the right side of the face. Both me and Patches start to chuckle. Unluckily I was near Sito and he heard my chuckles. "You messed with the balls didn't you?" he says in an aggravated tone. I just simply nod and say, "There were only 8 balls so I just replaced them with 16 better ones with each representing the dual list instead of just a number." Sito closes his eyes in annoyance but he doesn't do anything since it's not really anything major. He looks at the guards who recenters himself before looking at the image sphere before looking at Marik, Odion, and throwing the ball at him. He catches it and nods. The machine behind the guard activates again and from the other dragon head spout pops out the second sphere. The guard goes to check it and looks at it before presenting it to the duelists. Inside the sphere is the 2D image of a quartet of wings in the form of a heart. One pair are red while another is holographic which fades and appears depending on the light. The guard seems stumped at this one since it's not as easy as Marik's, Odion's. He looks at me and giving him a bone I look towards the duel list. He catches on and locks on that duel list. He throws the ball and it's caught in the hand of a blonde-haired and purple jacket-wearing self-made woman. My Valentine catches her sphere in light confusion but she looks at the sphere in curiosity before nodding and going towards the duel arena. The guards around the room usher the pair to their respective elevators and because I don't want to stand outside on a blimp I'll watch the duel on the screens in the banquet hall with most of the duelists. Unsurprisingly the main cast go to support their friend. While everyone anticipates the start of the finals, I sneakily find the guard who was operating the machine before handing him a sheet of paper with each sphere design and their intended duelists. He looks at me at confusion and then relief since I can tell if he messed up any of the spheres Sito would probably kick him from employment, then the blimp, in that order. Now I would say Sito would give the guy a parachute but it's the principle of the matter. Nearby I spot Patches who's inhaling fancy food without caring for the looks other give him for his actions. I guess he appreciate being in a world where he has an appetite, especially when there's so much fancy food around, so being the pal I am, I bring a full plate when his own is near empty. He looks at me with a smirk before taking the plate. While he does that, the screens around us announce that the first finals duel will now begin. The screens change to depict the top of the blimp showing Mai on one side and Marik, Odion, on the other of an oval platform with markings for the duel. They activate their dual disc illuminating the field before drawing their first hands to start the finals. Marik's LP 4000. Mai's LP 4000. Creators' thoughts. Having 16 people in the tournament means it can't really follow canon if I wanted to, so I used a wheel to make it random, but I will veto Yugi vs True Marik if it comes up in the starting rounds of the finals. Got to have dramatic tension and shit. Due to this I had to make a deck for each participant since I didn't know who would be appearing and when, so a bit delayed. Chapter 36, Chapter 34, Birdcage. The duel starts with Odian's draw. His impassive face looks at his hand before placing a pair of cards face down in his spell/trap zones and placing a face down monster on the field before ending his turn in silence. Undeterred, Mai draws her card before eyeing the field, then her hand. I don't like the feeling I get from those face downs. She takes a card and places it on the field in her spell/trap zone before summoning her own monster, but in this case does not face down. I summon my Amazonas trainee, and I'll have her take out your face down monster. The card appears on the field, and at the edge of the card a grapple is seen before a grey-haired woman in exotic cloth climbs out of the card onto the field. She quickly swings her grappling hook and chain at the face-down monster. Amazonas trainee Earth Warrior/effect ATK 1500/def 1300. The female warrior's hook strikes into the back of the face-down card with the chain becoming taut. She pulls, and the card is flipped over to reveal what seems to be a zombie camel. Delokuta Earth Zombie/effect ATK 500/def 600. Odian ever passive speaks directly. Due to Delokuta being flipped, I am allowed to draw a card. The zombie camel is wrapped up in the chain of the Amazon and becomes inert. You're not the only one with an effect happening. Due to the effect of my Amazonas trainee, if she would defeat a monster, she sends it to your deck and increases her attack by 200. The trainee pulls and spins in place, which lifts the camel's corpse from the ground before swinging it like a giant version of a hammer-throwing event before sending the mass towards Odian. He acts impartial to the event as the camel disintegrates into light and goes into his deck. Unaware to everyone who's watching, Odian simply placed the card in the deck but just didn't comment on the theatrics. Amazonas trainee ATK 1500 greater than 1700. Mai looks at her hand, then ends her turn. Odian draws his card and looks at the field. From my hand I'll play Temple of the Kings and Dark Room of Nightmare. He places them on each edge of his dual disc spell and trap zone. These cards cause the surroundings to change like a field spell. The surroundings take on an ancient Egyptian tomb-like ascetic with exposed sandstone and hieroglyphs. A pair of lit braziers light the surroundings, but they cast shadows which depict monsters just out of sight ready to strike. Temple of the Kings spell/continuous. Dark Room of Nightmare spell/continuous. Lastly, I'll summon another monster in face-down defense before activating another spell from my hand, with it being Gold Sarcophagus. Within the tomb a pedestal appears, and onto of it appears a golden box with the Millennium Eye imprinted upon it. Besides the pedestal, the face-down monster appears as if like a guard for the tomb's treasure. Gold Sarcophagus spell. The Gold Sarcophagus holds relics of the past, but for this duel it allows me to remove a card from my deck from play and retrieve it in 2 turns. A white undetailed card of light appears over the sarcophagus and floats into it before the lid of the sarcophagus closes, locking it tight. With that I'll end my turn. Mai draws her card and gives the change of scenery appear before focusing back on the duel. Well, since you're playing so defensive, I means I have to go on the offensive. I'll summon Amazonas Swordswoman and have her attack your face down. The card appears in front of Mai, and stepping out of is a bronze-haired woman with wild hair and a purple crown. She charges out with both ferocity and grace before slamming her sword down on the face-down card. Amazonas Swordswoman Earth Warrior/effect ATK 1500/def 1600. The sound of impact occurs, but its mora of squelchy slop as a rotting corpse-like mummy in red and blue wraps appears to climb out from the card with the sword embedded in its torso but seemingly unharmed from the blade's insertion. Poison Mummy Earth Zombie/effect ATK 1000/def 1800. The mummy tries to strike at the swordswoman, but she dodges in time and returns to Mai's field before taking out a second sword. She's called a swordswoman for a reason. Odian speaks. When Poison Mummy is flipped you take 500 damage, but also due to the effect of Dark Room of Nightmare, you take an additional 300. The Poison Mummy reaches for the blade in its chest before ripping it out in a shower of gore and liquids. The liquids coalesce into a ball above the zombie before being fired at Mai like a poisonous blob of goo. The Amazonas Swordswoman reacts and swings at the blob of goo and slices a portion of it off before sending towards Odian using the flat of her blade like a baseball bat. The balls of goo hit the pair at the same time, dealing damage to the both of them. Mai's LP, 4000-3200. Marik's LP, 4000-3700. Shivering at the thought of being covered in goo if this was real, Mai composes herself before speaking. Swordswoman's effect, you take any battle damage I would have taken in a battle with her, anyway my trainee can't beat the mummy. She goes to speak more but Odian cuts in. In response to taking the damage I'll activate one of my face downs. Attack and receive, this causes 700 more damage to you which is increased due to Dark Room of Nightmare to 1000. The mummy still holding the sword throws it at Mai and in flight it seems to gain a edge of darkness, it strikes her dealing damage to her. Mai's LP, 3200-2200. With a bitter expression on her face, she says. I'll end my turn. Before he draws Odian speaks, at the end of your turn, I'll activate one of my face downs. I activate Needle Wall. Needle Wall Trap/Continuous. This card designates each of your monster zones 1 to 5, and at my standby phase I roll a die to determine a monster zone that is crushed with any monster on it being destroyed. At his words the monster zones on Mai's field get marked with her swordswoman on 2 and trainee on 3. I now draw and throw my first die. He draws then presses a button on his dual disc, from what seems to be the ceiling of the tomb a sandstone cube is dropped, and it rolls around. It moves for a small time before landing on a 5, in an instant a pillar falls from the ceiling pronged with sharp spikes and smashes into Mai's 5th monster zone. Too bad, well lets me begin your descent into doom, I'll tribute my poison mummy to summon the mystical beast of circuit. At his words the poison mummy on the field starts to spasm and writhe erratically, the zombie lets out a groan of pain before its form decays and morphs, this takes a few moments, but the mummy's blue and red wraps start to bulge outwards before straining, like a cocoon before metamorphism. In a loud crack the wrap cocoon snaps and a large creature that can only be described the mixture between a scorpion, worm, and dragon appears with many black chitinous legs and arms with a pale red pulsating exoskeleton which leads to a maw of many teeth. Mystical Beast of Circuit Earth Fairy /Effect ATK 2500/Def 2000. I'll have my beast attack your trainee. At his words his monstrosity springs into action and goes to attack the woman warrior. The beast charges forth and when it's about to harm the trainee, a grand machete-like blade appears against the monster's claw blocking it at the last moment, wielding it is a blue-haired woman in grand metal Amazonas armor. In response I'll activate my own face down, Dramatic Rescue. Dramatic Rescue Trap. This allows me to save my trainee and by returning her to my hand before summoning another monster from my hand, in this case, my Amazonas Queen. Amazonas Queen Earth Warrior /Effect ATK 2400/Def 1800. Off the screen I can metaphorically hear the moronic tones of Joey taking about even though she now hears she's still weaker than the monstrosity. Due to Amazonas Queen's effect Amazons cannot be destroyed by battle. At her words the Queen parries the monster's claw, but the parry sends a shard of the beast's claw to be sent to hit Mai's LP, 2200 greater than 2100. Odian isn't happy at that, but he continues his turn not betraying his irritation. I'll play one card face down before ending my turn. Mai draws before immediately playing the card. I play Pot of Greed to draw 2. Pot of Greed spell. She draws more and looks at her field. First I'll play one card face down before going to the battle phase. I'll have my Amazonas swordswoman attack your beast. Her words cause a silence to occur, but her words act out as the swordswoman readies her second blade before sprinting at the beast. The beast more focused on the Amazonas Queen doesn't catch the weakling's attack in time allowing her to cut one of its claws off at a joint. The beast flails in pain before going to strike at the weakling that harmed it. When it does the queen moves and blocks the strike to hit the swordswoman who picks up the dropped claw and throws it at Odian before retreating while being protected by her queen. The claw strikes Odian who watches the display without emotion. While she's retreating the swordswoman even retrieves her first sword so she's now wielding a pair of large swords one in each hand. Raiden next to me approves of that action. Marik's LP, 3700 greater than 2700. Most people are still confused due to the combat but with the life points result they remember the effect of Amazonas swordswoman. With that Mai ends her turn and at the start of Odian's turn two things happen in an order once he draws. First the golden sarcophagus near him unseals itself presenting a card for him to collect as well as another sandstone die is rolled, in an instant it lands on 2. As Odian adds the card to his hand the pillar from the ceiling falls down upon the swordswoman who tries to guard against it using her blades, but she's crushed into a paste on the floor due to the sheer impact of the trap. The queen looks angrily at Odian but it's his turn, but he doesn't seem to do anything special. I'll summon a monster face down and end my turn. Mai looks at Odian with suspicion before drawing a card for her turn. I'll resummon my Amazonas trainee and play one card on the field face down before attacking your face down with my trainee. The trainee appears again and with her chain she goes to attack the face down. With some surprise a familiar zombie camel appears. In a repeat of the first turn the zombie dies and Odian is allowed to draw a card. Mai with a irritated look sighs before ending her turn even after her monster returns to 1700 ATK. Odian simply draws before another sandstone die falls and this time lands on a 1, the pillar misses the pair. Odian seems to size up his cards before normal summoning a monster for the first time in the duel. I'll summon a man with Ujat. When summoned I'm allowed to look at one set card on your field, and since you have two, I'll target the left one. This causes Mai to flinch as it's revealed to be a transparent wall of reflective crystals. A man with Ujat dark spellcaster / effect ATK 1600 / def 1600. Mirror wall trap / continuous. Odian simply nods before letting the card fall back down. I'll activate a mystical space typhoon from my hand to destroy your mirror wall. Mystical space typhoon spell / quick. A small, localized tornado appears in the tomb and a bolt of lightning strikes down on the face down shattering it like glass. Now I'll have my beast attack your trainee. The beast goes to strike at the Amazonas, but Mai reacts. I'll activate my other face down, my Amazonas archers. Amazonas archers trap. As if in an ambush a flurry of arrows appears from blind spots and impale into the beast and the robe of the man with a golden eye. This causes both of your monsters to temporarily lose 500 attack points and forces them to attack this turn. Mystical Beast of Circuit ATK 2500 2000. A man with Idujat ATK 1600 greater than 1100. The beast continues again without instruction since its rampage is total, it strides towards the trainee who looks at nervously, the beast goes to strike at the trainee but the ever-dutiful queen steps in the block the strike, but beast has learned and strikes with another of its claws. This causes the trainee to be struck but the hit just sends her reeling. In her reeling her grappling hook is sent flying and strikes at Mai equal to the force of the attack. Mai's LP, 2100 1800. Thinking he's smart the man with the magic eye goes to attack the trainee while she's down hoping to please the beast but as he goes for the attack, he feels his arms are pulled out of the way as hidden wires on the arrows embedded in his robe cause him to flail. The trainee is able to stand back up and she watches as the man is flailing in his robes and makes her grappling hook swing towards the man. Being too preoccupied with his robe acting like a puppeteer, he doesn't notice the flying hook before it's right in front of his eye, it's an Egyptian eye as it pierces perfectly defeating him. The man blows up in a blast of light and Odian loses some life points in the blast, the hook returns to the trainee and now glows with a gold-like luster. Marik's LP, 2700 2100. Amazonas trainee ATK, 1700 1900. Odian actually shows a scowl of annoyance before he goes to end his turn. Mai now smiling at her turn draws and her smile just grows. From my hand I'll activate my Harpy's Feather Duster to destroy all of your spell and traps on the field. Harpy's Feather Duster spell. Odian still scowling speaks, in response I activate my Temple of the Kings to tribute my mystical beast of circuit to special summon a card of my choice from my hand, deck, or field. The temple starts to decay, and the walls start to become ruins, the beast itself starts to decay and calcify as if time itself is attacking the beast it causes the beast to become a white husk upon the field. At that point the Feather Duster appears and causes a flurry of fake sand to fly everywhere making the temple disappear, the only thing left on Odian's field is the calcified remains of the beast. Where is the monster you summoned Marik? I don't see it. Mai says in slight confusion. Odian responds, oh it's just there. At his words he points to the calcified remains as it starts to move. The remains start to animate and from the abundance of chitin and bones a creature made of bone and skulls appears with a core that glows red. Ryu Koki Dark Zombie / Effect ATK 2400 / Def 2000. At the sight of the monster, Mai looks annoyed since she just got rid of one monster and now another difficult one appears, she looks at it then her hand before making a plan. I'll have my Amazonas Queen attack your monster. At her words the Amazonas Queen nods before charging the arisen monster. The creature detects her approach and swings its arm to strike at the warrior, the queen jumps onto the arm of the creature and runs along it to get closer. The zombie raises its other arm to attack, but she jumps over it and leaps towards the core of the monster. She plunges her great machete into the core of the creature's chest, the creature in a bellow of rage start to glow, the queen looks towards the trainee who is watching her and smiles. The trainee realizing what happening goes to run and help her queen, but the core of the creature explodes in a blast of red energy taking the queen with it. Odian simply speaks, Ryu Koki's effect destroys all warriors or spellcasters which battled with it via an effect defeating your Amazonas Queen. As he ends his words, he spots in time as a hook glowing lightly with gold comes and strikes him for a lot of damage. Marik's LP, 2100 greater than 200. The enraged Amazonas trainee retracts her hook and glares at Odion. Mai looks annoyed since she doesn't have a monster in hand to just summon and win the duel with when she could have. She places one card face down before she ends the turn. Odion draws a card and simply plays a card of Sanctity, refilling both of their hands up to 6 again. With his hand refilled, he plays a card from it. Card of Sanctity spell. Monster Reborn spell. I'll revive Ryu Koki and then I'll summon a monster face down. The skeletal monstrosity arises from the crater of its demise, leers at the Amazon who looks at with hatred. Now I have a bad feeling about that face down, so I'll just play 2 cards face down and end my turn. Mai seems annoyed at that, but she draws a card for her turn. I'll activate from my hand a Graceful Charity. To draw 3, then discard 2. Graceful Charity spell. She goes through the draw and discards and smiles. You were right to worry about my face down, but you misinterpreted its danger. I'll activate Harpy's Hunting Ground. Harpy's Hunting Ground spell /field. Next I'll summon to my field Harpa Lady 1 with her appearance. The Hunting Ground allows me to destroy one of your spell or traps, so I'll destroy the right one. The Harpy appears from the clouds. The female beast woman has bright red hair and green wings attached to her arms. Appears. She dive bombs the field and strikes at Odion's card, but he doesn't react, besides revealing it to be a serpent-like creature in trap form. Harpa Lady number 1 Wind Winged Beast /effect ATK 1300/1800/def 1400. I'll play another card from my hand, Elegant Egotist, which will allow me to special summon more Harpa Ladies, in this case Harpa Lady Sisters, and I'll have them take out your last face down card. Elegant Egotist spell. 3 more Harpies break from the clouds, making the Harpa count up to 4. The trio goes to dive bomb the last face down. Harpa Lady Sisters Wind Winged Beast /effect ATK 1950/2450/def 2100. Odion looks at Mai with a passive face before taking the card and revealing it. You're not the only person to be patient. I was planning to see if you were to summon a stronger monster and I was correct. In response to your summoning, I'll use Solemn Judgment to pay half of my remaining life points to negate your Harpa Sisters summoning. Solemn Judgment trap /counter. The Harpa Sisters, still diving from the skies, feel an immense pressure upon them, but they continue to go for the strike before a trio of lightning bolts break from the clouds as well, striking the trio down. The Harpies are fried in the sky and become limp in the air before become pixelated motes of light. Marik's LP, 200 greater than 100. This causes Mai to scowl. From there she looks at her field and points her Amazonas trainee to attack Odion's face down monster. She goes to do so, but her hook is deflected by a bronze shield as a zombie wields it with surprising skill. A chip of the shield is sent flying at Mai. Royal Keeper Earth Zombie /effect ATK 1600/def 1700 greater than 2000. Mai's LP 1800 greater than 1700. Annoyed at the turn of events, Mai ends her turn. At this, Odion draws and looks at his field. I'll tribute Royal Keeper to summon Great Desert. A coffin rises from the ground behind the Royal Keeper, and it walks into it willingly. The coffin is sealed by a slab of stone rising from the ground to cover it, and appearing from behind it is a robed man in ornate robes with a unique headdress. Great Desert Dark Spellcaster /effect ATK 1900/def 2300. I'll have Ryu Koki attack your trainee and Great Desert attack your Harpy. At his words, the trainee watches as the skeletal monster goes to attack her, and while that happens, the Harpy who's watching this unfold from the sky has to start dodging void bolts being rained towards her coming from the spellcaster. The pair of female combatants hold out for longer than they should have, but one gets crushed by the sheer weight of the monster smashing into her, while the other gets overwhelmed by the flood of bolts, making her fall from the sky and fading into motes of pixelated light. Mai's LP, 1700/1100. At this, Odion ends his turn and Mai draws while having no monsters or any cards on the field. She looks at the last card with hope and feels like she has it as she reveals the card. I activate a Pot of Greed to draw 2. She does this and draws 2 more cards. With those cards she feels she's back in the game. I'll summon a monster face down and place this card face down. Before ending my turn, Odion draws, looks at the drawn card before looking at the field. I'll have Grand Desert attack your face down. He orders, and the robbed man charges a magical ball to fling at the face down, but Mai responds, I'll activate a mirror wall, having your monsters attack for the turn. She does this before revealing the mirror wall. The monster is revealed to be a Harpa Lady, and Mai thinks she's won since Odion would lose from splashback damage, but something happens. The magical ball from Grand Desert travels towards the mirror wall and completely shatters it before striking the Harpa, destroying it. Mirror Wall had to target Grand Desert, and due to his effect, since he's already destroyed a monster, any spell of trap that targets him is negated and destroyed. Odian's words ring in the air before he says some words, and the white abomination strides over the Mai and strikes her for the last of her life points. Mai's LP, 1100. Marik wins. Chapter 37, Chapter 35 Light and Darkness upon Infinity. Watching the duel between Odian and Mai was interesting, mainly due to seeing how passive of a duelist Odian is. Yes, he summoned the stronger monsters and won in the end, but most of his plan revolves around defensive plays, I can tell, and just simply using the beast as his juggernaut. Mai played well to prevent the beast from picking up steam with the queen, but she pressed too much. When she pushed, Odian hit her with an unnoticed uppercut which sent her reeling to the knockout. I look around the room and notice something interesting. The Kaiba brothers are together even after my contract came to light. I turn back to the close-by screen and notice Miquella nearby sitting on a table in spiritual form, looking between me and a certain brunette who is surrounded by her brother's friends. I walk towards him, and I catch his attention. I give him a look and start to spiritually speak to him. "You're staring, Miquella, you must be curious about something, it doesn't take a genius to know what." He looks at me with a look of bleak curiosity. "That cancerous tumor you spat out is still on my mind. The maelstrom is as chaotic as ever, but without it, it seems to missing something important." I get to the table and start looking through its buffet selection before giving Miquella a side eye. "Like a shadow." My words cause Miquella to look confused and shaken. "How would you know that?" "You can't peer at your soul's chaotic maelstrom, but as I look at it, seems you're right, it's like it's lost a massless layer upon it." I shovel some shrimp onto my plate, looking away from him. "It's because I know more about the realm where that clot came from, and its main concept is light and darkness. I can assume it was acting like a light source in the soul maelstrom in a way, and where there is light it casts a shadow on everything around it." With little sound, I watch as Rani appears opposite from Miquella, flanking me with her hands interlocked. I sense there is a story behind that world, but I feel it's not a nice one. I munch on the shrimp. "You would be correct, that world was very much like your own. It started out as a blank canvas capable of anything, ruled by dragons, unaffected by the touch of time. But unlike how you had the crucible to guide the growth of the lands between, the realm was the site of a great phenomenon which shaped it." My words catch the attention of the pair, since with my comparison to their own realm they can feel the narrative weight of it. "The phenomena was the sparking of the first flame, which I believe was the first in all existence. With its creation, concepts of heat became a thing that propagated throughout existence. With heat comes cold, and with the birth of a pair of conflicting concepts came to start a cascade of other concepts, first with propagation and decay, which led to the distinction of life and death as states of being." Sound and silence. "But the most important for that realm was that of body and soul. My story of the first flame causes the other demigods to appear for the story time, since they have nothing better to do. I say that body and soul were the most important, since in that realm the denizens were probably affected by the first flame. Actually, each had immortal bodies, but they each had no soul within them, so they were listless and simple beings with no purpose. This changed when a few of them came across the first flame deep underground. Within the flame they found grand souls which held power over the concepts the flame propagated. In this case, the main four were: Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, with the light soul, which was the strongest and greatest of the grand souls present; the Pyromancer witch of Azalith, who held the life soul; Naito, the first of the dead, with his death soul, which could control both death and decay; lastly the forgotten furtive pygmy with the dark soul. Each one of these beings was referred to as lords, with their respective souls being referred to as lord souls. At this point, Godwin, who's resting on his friend, speaks. "Let me guess what happens next. They go to war against the dragons for control of the realm." I just nod while munching on a chocolate-covered eclair. "You right, Godwin. The next thing they did was try and fight the everlasting dragons, but with their scales of stone being impervious to their attempts. The key word is try. But within the dragons there existed an aberration. As a draconic form of albinism, there was a dragon born without the scales that made the dragons immune to the effects of time. The albino dragon Seth the Scaleless, who in my belief was himself a product of the first flame which created the disparity of his form to other dragons, held a hatred for his kin due to this disparity, and also due to the fact they held an item from him which would grant him immortality like them. So, Seth got in contact with the lords and made a deal, the weakness of the dragons in return for his pardon and the immortality granting item in question. With the deal struck, the lords overcame the everlasting dragons to take over the realm, and weirdly enough the lords kept their deal with Seth, who became a sort of advisor to the lords. Not sure really. They had a grand age of light where the lords ruled, but unbeknownst to the lords every flame must fade, so the longer the age of light lasted, the more and more the first flame started to fade. The lords derived their power from the first flame, so while it faded so did their power, when they noticed each lord acted in different ways. Naito promptly went to try and sleep through the disaster, not caring since death is death, so they would be fine, they thought. The Witch of Azalith, being a grand pyromancer, tried to ignite a new flame to replace the first flame, but in her hubris just warped her life soul to create a font of rampant chaotic life which made monsters and overall chaos tied to the first flame itself as long as it was still lit. Lastly, the Lord of Sunlight had a thought that would prolong his age of light but would start a cruel cycle of rebirth and decay, which scholars from that realm would refer to as the first sin. He fed himself, his grand soul and the many souls of his loyal knights to the first flame to act as kindling. This worked but scarred the world, making it so souls now were a tangible concept to those without Lord souls, and the more souls a being had the stronger they were. This time Ronnie cuts in with a question. What about the pygmy you told us about? This causes me to smile since her own form is a pygmy in comparison to the other demigods besides maybe Miquella. The pygmy, or as he was called Manus, was the most successful of the great lords with his method to stave off the decay of the first flame. Now due to the nature of his soul and how weak it was in comparison to the others, he was the first to realize the first flame was fading, so his plan was both ingenious and so blatant that the other lords never realized until it was too late with his victory. This causes some of the demigods to look very interested. Like the Witch of Azalith, he had the idea to essentially create a new flame, but they realized that no matter what, he couldn't create a flame greater than the source of his dark soul, so he had the idea of an ever-propagating flame which would form new small flames which themselves would make more flames without end. So, he split his already weak dark soul into many fragments and set the sparks to propagate humanity and humans as a race, creating man within the realm. The lords noticed the propagation of humans since it's kind of impossible to not notice such growth, but they thought it was just a result of their age of light giving life to the realm, so they ruled over them as gods. Within each human was a minuscule sliver of the dark soul acting as a miniature flame, giving birth and fading away like a normal flame, to create an endless chain of fires which could outlast the age of light, into the age of the dark. My explanation of the pygmy's plan causes some of the demigods to be stunned at his creativity and forethought. Regardless of Gwyn's actions to keep his reign of light alive, in the end, the pygmy would win, but the followers of Gwyn used the humans to relight the first flame by filling them with vast amounts of souls before having them become ashes within the kill of the first flame. This process of reigniting the first flame occurred for countless ages. With each rekindle the world was sapped more and more of its life, as when a soul entered the flame it didn't return since it was used as fuel, so at some point the end had to come. Those cards I puked out were key figures from the last cycle of the rekindling process. At that point the realm had become a decayed mess and there were no beings of strong enough souls left to light the flame, so a failsafe Gwyn built into the flame activated, reviving the remains of those who could. But at that time, the Risen realized the world was screwed and chose to live out the last days of the world in their own ways, but another Risen appeared and slew each of the revived beings, becoming strong enough to reignite the first flame somehow. But through their journey they were dragged into a sub-dimension full of cold and rot, where they were requested to get a little painter girl some special pigment from the last settlement in the world, the Ringed City. There in the Ringed City, with the help of some allies, they found the city in a pristine condition but just at the brink of the starting to decay like the world around it, and the only holding the city together were two key entities. First was the one of Gwyn's daughters, Filianary, who held the soul with control over time and a white shell which entrapped her in a never-ending dream, causing Filianary's time soul to keep the city in a time bubble unaware of the world outside the city ring. When the Ashen One finds her, his presence is enough to shatter the white shell with a touch, sending the time bubble to the end of time within the realm where Filianary would die when time would fracture to feed the flame, since nothing else was left. Most of the demigods are covered in grim fascination. What does the death of time look like to the world? There the Ashen One saw the result of reigniting the flame endlessly. It was all just ashen dunes and grand ruins of civilizations. Everything is consumed to feed the flame, so even time itself was being fed to the flame. This allowed the Ashen One to be there at the end of time while being able to return to their own time later. There at the decay of time, he found a friend who gained the same quest from the painter, but the Ashen One wasn't fully aware of what the paint she asked for really was. It only became apparent when they met their friend. At that point, the Ashen One essentially time traveled while their friend didn't, so for the rest of time his friend essentially hunted every being with humanity in existence, so at that point, they had the closest thing akin to the dark soul running through their body. His blood was the pigment the painter asked for. At that point the friend was also crazy due to the endless slaughter and the power running through him, and attacked the Ashen One in his madness, but in the end, the Ashen One won. At their victory, they possibly made a decision and faced the guardian of the kill of the first flame, which was a living god made from the combined power of every being who fed themselves to the flame. In the end, the Ashen One overcame that god and stood at the embers of the first flame. There he had three choices: the first was to doom the world to the ashen hell they saw, and the second was to call on his companion to snuff the embers for an age of darkness. There were other options, but their intentions are unclear, for one would have the Ashen One become a Lord of the Dark but not by snuffing the flame, and the last option would have had them betray their companion to consume the first flame to become the next Lord of Cinder, while making it so while they're alive the flame won't fade. I just munch on some chocolate cookies I had within reach as the demigods hear about the end of the other realm. When I finish the story, I notice that the whole group of duelists have grouped up at the machine for the duel draft. I walk over as I see one pop out of the spout. The guard holds it and looks at it. He looks around the room and throws the sphere towards someone. With a firm grasp which caught the ball without even looking, Kaiba takes the sphere depicting the image of his blue eyes white dragon blasting something beneath it with their breath before walking to the elevator for the roof. The next sphere is produced by the machine. The guard takes the sphere and looks around the room for the contestant but doesn't find them. He then raises his hand to his earpiece and then looks to a screen. This causes everyone else to look at it. Upon it is the depiction of a veiled woman standing on the roof arena with a dual disc in white flowing robes in the wind. The guard looks at the screen, then at his roster, then shrugs, then starts to speak. The next duel list to duel with Kaiba is already there, it seems. He says this and shows the sphere which depicts the Millennium Necklace and a veil arcing under the ornament like a Shizu's veil. Within the gap created by the arching veil a pair of eyes are visible under the Millennium Necklace. Both Kaiba and Ishizu take their place on the arena before starting the duel. Sito's LP, 4000. Ishizu's LP, 4000. Chapter 38, Chapter 36. The tournament continues along. When the duel between Ishizu and Kaiba starts, I tune it out since I already know what's going to happen. Honestly, I think the Millennium Necklace was the most unwieldy, yet now I think it is in the running to contend with the key for the most powerful of the bunch. I think this because the moment the pair of their spheres indicated they were going against each other, I came to a possibility which changed my idea of its power level. The Millennium Necklace doesn't only display a future, it also allows its wearer to determine an outcome, but I would guess its effect is more manipulating the probabilities than just drawing over fate's canvas. For instance, with the 14 spheres in the machine, their dual chance was like 1 in 91 possible results, which is like nearly a 1% chance. But I would also assume it can't affect the free will of others, because if it did she wouldn't have lost to me before. Additionally, from that duel, I would also assume she can't affect the probability of cards which contain spirits since they have a will within them. I look around the room and spot someone who I thought wouldn't be here, speaking with another person who I wasn't expecting on the blimp but just didn't notice until now. Maybe they just arrived, who knows? Standing looking at one of the screens is Kaiba standing next to Maximilian Pegasus. With a look that shows my inner gremlin, I walk over the pair. They both notice my approach, one is smiling, the other is annoyed. Well, that's not a very nice face to be showing your company's new head of public relations. Vice President Mokuba. At my words, Maximilian Pegasus's smile gains a hint of a smirk at the new ammo. Oh, was there a reshuffling of the staff I wasn't aware of, Mokuba boy? I lean to the side and make a fake sad smile as if not happy at the employment. It was a rapid employment made by Kaiba himself. I went from a shareholder to a corner office so fast even he didn't realize the speed of my promotion until it was too late. This causes Pegasus to chuckle lightly. Fully legal, I hope, notarized with lawyers and all. At this, I just produced the contract and at the point it's signed by Kaiba Core lawyers. I will say at the time I was using some minor perception blocking to hide the juicier details so they didn't warn Kaiba, but Mokuba knew about the clause. I just blindsided him before he could warn Sito, but Maximilian doesn't know that. Signed and notarized. The funniest part is that Sito can't fire me for 2 months, so this will annoy him for at least 2 months. Pegasus just chuckles in amusement. Once he stops chuckling, he gives me a look. Well, Drogan boy, I am curious why you approached us too. Shouldn't you be watching the duel between Kaiba boy and Ishizu? I just shrug. I don't really need to since I know Sito will win in the end. I beat her before and know her skill level isn't as high as Sito's. My words cause Mokuba to nod like what I said was a fact and Pegasus to take a sip of a wine glass he was holding. But I approached you since we had our deal, so I felt it prudent to at least show you the different types of cards I can make for you to legalize in the rule book. This catches the attention of Mokuba as well as Pegasus, who just sports a great smile. From my pilot coat, I take a card from my newest deck and show it to him. Raiden the Starscourge Dark Warrior /XYZ /Effect ATK 3000 /Def 3000. Currently I'm only running a different type of card known as XYZs. They are summoned via a method that's like a mix between fusion and ritual. fusion in the fact it requires a multitude of monsters on the field to be summoned, but it's ritual-like because it's dependent on the monster's level instead of being a named requirement like for fusions, all without ritual spell cards being required. I palm the hand and offer it to Pegasus, who I can trust. He might be a jester, but even he can feel the spiritual might of the card in front of him, so he's careful. Both he and Mokuba are interested in the card, and quickly he is enamored with the card. He starts asking questions that I answer the best I can, like about the card types of origins with dimensional space being a factor, but he can tell I'm not an expert on the subject, so that curves his enthusiasm. One key question I feel he asks is when he points out on the card a visual anomaly in comparison to other cards. One last question about this card type: why are the level stars of the card outlined in black instead of the standard red? Knowing this, I answer, it's because for XYZ monsters don't have levels, they instead have ranks. Similar to monster levels, usually the higher the rank the stronger the card, and usually also its requirements to be summoned. Off the top of my head, if I remember, there's a rank 10 XYZ that can just deal 2000 direct damage once per turn, while having the same ATK and def as the card I showed you. At my words, it causes Mokuba and Pegasus to pause just at the thought of a card that is powerful to just deal half of a person's life points while being as powerful as Blue Eyes. At this point, Pegasus asks one last question which makes me think, well, as shocking as a card that powerful is, it must have a weakness. That reminds me, what major weakness would you think XYZs would have in general? The way you describe it, you speak how they can just appear at any time, so I would say a type of card that powerful must have a drawback. I nod at Pegasus's words. You are correct. The XYZ category of cards does have a downside. To use their effects, they require to expend an XYZ material which it only gains when it is summoned. It gains an XYZ material equal to the number of monsters used to summon it. So if it has no XYZ material attached, they can't use their effect. Take the card I showed you. If Raiden lost all his materials, he loses the ability to attack directly. My words cause Pegasus to nod in confirmation while Mokuba writes something down out of my sight. I don't care if he shares it with Seto, since I will want to face Seto Kaiba at his best. Thinking about Seto Kaiba, I look at the screen and notice that in the time it took for Pegasus to appraise Raiden's card, the duel is already over, obviously with the same result as canon. I shrug at that before looking at Pegasus and speaking, well, it seems they're about to do the next duel list draw, so I would like my card back. If I'm not picked, you can examine another of my unique cards if you want. With light reluctance, Pegasus returns the card, and most of the room looks towards the device as Seto makes his return to the room and approaches us, or more importantly Mokuba. The machine lights up and spouts out the next duel list sphere. The guard picks up the sphere and examines it before looking around the room, then revealing the sphere. The sphere depicts an image like a portrait playing card. In the card depicts a cute angel on one half of the card and a tricky devil on the other. The sphere is thrown into the crowd and a small girl catches it. The next duel list is Rebecca Hawkins. Those around her are slightly surprised at her early duel, but she just smiles at the rest of Yugi's friends. She waits for the other duel list to be announced before heading up. The machine spits out another sphere. The guard takes it and gives it one glance before throwing it again into the crowd with little examination required. It lands in the hands of the only multicolored hair teenager in the tournament. Yugi Moto will be Rebecca's opponent. Yugi, now holding a sphere depicting the Millennium Puzzle that casts shadows which move depending on the light, looks at Rebecca in shock. Rebecca returns the expression with similar emotions and trepidations. Chapter 39, Chapter 37 Guides of Lords and Champions. When the pair of opponents were announcing, my first reaction was to smile like the devil at the ironically low probability of that pairing to happen. I knew friends could be dueling against each other, but I just wasn't expecting one so juicy. Now everyone here might not know the context of my amusement, but technically Rebecca is the queen of games since she's actually defeated Yugi even if he surrendered. She even has the ties of friendship from Yugi, which was rewarded at the same time as the title to Yugi just to make it more official. My smile fades though when I watch as Rebecca raises her hand and speaks. I would like to let Yugi continue on. I don't want to duel with a friend when this tournament is more important to him than for me. This catches everyone by surprise, even Yugi, who was still processing having to duel Rebecca, torn between a friend and stopping Marik by any means. The guard who threw the spheres looks towards Kaiba, who looks as annoyed as everyone else and is complexed at the situation. At this point I step in. Having access to the distribution details for the coverage of the tournament, I know for a fact that this room isn't being broadcast, only really the machine itself when it's being drawn. Within the pilot coat, I grab my lapel and form a hidden microphone. Connecting to the guard's earpiece, I speak to him and relay a reasonable plan of action. After hearing my suggestion, he seems to nod. This causes Seto to look at me in suspicion since he's a sharp tool and can tell something is up straight away. The guard speaks, Due to distribution contracts for the tournament and the server itself, you need to access the arena on the roof to start the duel with Mr. Moto, then surrender on your turn for it to be allowed. Miss Hawking, we are sorry for the inconvenience. This causes most of those in attendance to mumble, but they accept it, thinking it's mainly due to how they weren't expecting this situation, so they didn't make a contingency for it. Those in the know about the system can smell the shit from a mile away, and my shit-eating grin catches the attention of the Kaiba brothers and Pegasus, but I don't notice as I start to skulk off. After learning about the situation, Yugi and Rebecca look at each other before walking to their respective elevators for each contestant. Yugi's friends minus Rebecca follow him. The doors to the elevators close to send them up, and Rebecca alone's stare is filled with determination to just give her friend the win. Let's mess with that. You know, this scenario is very funny. My words cause the little girl to jump as I am behind her in the elevator. What are you doing here? You appeared from nowhere. I was standing here in the elevator. You were just so focused on helping your friend that you didn't notice me until I caught your attention, I say with a smile, while I know I simply used a perception blocking barrier. I remembered about the Mirage Rise and its magic. Rebecca just glares at me, so speak to her. I got in here to speak with you. I'm not pulling my favor, but I simply have a suggestion for you to listen to. Rebecca huffs and takes out her new deck before examining the cards, thinking for a moment before speaking. Go on then, I'll listen. It's not like I need to follow it or anything. I lean to the side and rest my chin on a raised hand. Why not have some fun instead of just surrendering? Have a fun duel with Yugi. If you're about to win, surrender then. If you lose, no big deal. This causes Rebecca to go silent and stop examining her cards, the thought not occurring to her, probably because she's usually so focused on the win instead of the duel itself. Also, it would be a shame if you didn't use that deck I gave you, since you would be the first recorded person to use a synchro summon monster or XYZ monster. You would be known as a pioneer, just like your grandfather. My honeyed words latching onto her want to be like her grandfather. It doesn't take much, but I can tell she's considering my suggestion just in time too, as the elevator opens to reveal the open-top arena. Both parties arrive at the same time, and the employee acting as the referee is waiting for everyone. He must be cold being out here for so long. Yugi's party is slightly confused at my appearance with Rebecca, but she walks to the platform and gets ready for the duel. I walk to the main group of teens, but I notice something when I approach. Hey Melina, would you like to meet someone very special? My question doesn't create a response for a second, but next to me materializes is Melina in spiritual form. Once she's out, she notices the person who's standing behind the group in spirit form. I start to mingle with the teens because why not? I keep an eye on the meeting of two guides. Melina, as she approaches the other spirit, can feel the kindred bond their bodies share due to their similar fates. Even if she doesn't know her story, she can tell their fates are very similar. I watch as the pair face off and politely bow to each other. Hello, I am Melina, a finger maiden in service of the two fingers who curry my champion to become the next Elden Lord. Hello Melina, I am the last fire keeper. I tend to the flame and tended to my lord's needs, helping him to end a world of flickering fire. I feel a great warmth within you, but with it a shadow of great sadness. This causes Melina to look away. We both know the end of her story is either a great sacrifice or a great betrayal made out of kindness. I have heard your story from him. You don't need to tell me, for I can feel the lingering remnants of you and your champion's decision in that world. Both women who have impacted their world massively seem to have a conversation without uttering another word before bowing to each other politely. Melina fades away back to my soul? Mind? Wherever they reside, while the Fire Keeper returns to acting as Serenity's shadow. While I was mingling with the teens with pointless and misdirecting words, I noticed that Serenity noticed the meeting of the guides. The duel was about to start, so everyone focused on it, but she looked at me with a questioning glance. When I can tell she goes to ask, I place a finger to my lips and say nothing, which only she noticed since the duel starts. I look at Rebecca and see she's smiling, not in a competitive way but more in a joyful way. I can see Yugi noticed that as well. Yugi's LP 4000. Rebecca's LP 4000. Chapter 40, Chapter 38, King and Queen of Games. Yugi Moto's LP 4000. Rebecca Hawking's LP 4000. The pair draw their hands, and Yugi starts by drawing. He also goes to end his turn feeling relaxed, thinking this is more of a formality, but before he signals the end of his turn, his eyes focus on Rebecca's and sees her determination within her eyes, which lock with his. You've changed your mind, haven't you, Rebecca? She nods and says with fire in her voice, yeah, I don't mind giving you the win, but while arriving here I realized something. In our last duel you were holding back, this time I want your full commitment to the duel. With a sorrowful smile on his face, Yugi lightly chuckles. well, I was distracted before with your talks about the ownership of the 4th Blue Eyes card, so I wasn't fully in the game, but here and now I need to win this tournament, I can't play games." In a cutesy voice, Rebecca smiles and responds, "Yeah, that's why I'm willing to give up on the tournament since it's more important to you than me, but, while in the elevator here, that shady guy gave me some incentive to duel you for real." This causes Yugi and most of the people present to look at me in confusion. I just shrug since she's not wrong. "I thought you wouldn't care about bribes." At his words she nodded, "Well, yeah, he's not bribing me or forcing me to, but he convinced me we could just have a fun duel." At this point an evil thought appears in the gremlin's head. He even said if you could beat me here, he's willing to give you a powerful card he has. At this everyone is looking at me again and I just stare at Rebecca, who has stuck their tongue out mischievously at me, sighing since I get a feeling Yugi won't duel at full power if I don't reach into my pilot jacket and manifest a single card, which is synonymous with the dark magician archetype in the modern day. Dark magical circle spell / continuous. Since I have no reason not to, I reveal the card to the group and being the fastest reader, T reads it and visually gulps. She looks towards Yugi and nods, showing it's not a joke. Yugi's face tenses and looks at Rebecca, then with a confident smirk he says, "Let duel then. I'll summon to the field a monster face down, then place 2 cards down before ending my turn." Rebecca smiles cutely and draws. She tilts her head side to side considering her options before smiling. "I know how tricky you are, Yugi, so I'll have to be tricky as well. From my hand I'll summon Eren, Lightsworn monk in attack position, then I'll equip from my hand Lightsworn saber." Her words cause all of those who were present at their last match to be stunned since new deck. The silence is prevalent as all the light in the arena starts to coalesce onto a monster zone. It shines for a second, then in a flash of red suddenly there is a female monk in white and red robes wielding a bow staff. She takes a steady stance before spinning her staff rapidly. The staff seems to catch remnants of the light that she appears in before forming into Glaive's head on the end of her staff. Eren, Lightsworn monk light warrior / effect ATK 1600-2300 / def 1000. Lightsworn saber spell / equip. Reveling in the appearance of her monster, she continues to speak. "I'll play one more face down before having Eren eject your monster from the field." His words cause Yugi to snap out of the shock and look at her. He simply reveals his face-down monster. A gruff buff man wielding a large shield that blocks the sight of his body appears crouching behind his shield. Big Shield Gardna Earth Warrior / effect ATK 100 / def 2600. Yugi doesn't activate any traps since the monster should be able to block the monk, but he sees that Rebecca is passive and isn't saying anything. The reason why becomes apparent when the monk starts to charge the shielded warrior. The warrior is stalwart like a castle wall, but like a ninja. The monk uses her light glaive to hook onto the top of the shield before climbing over it. In a feat of acrobatics she somersaults over the warrior still holding her glaive. From her position behind him she again uses her glaive like a hook, but this time onto the ankle of the warrior. Being the bulky shield user he's slow to react to the actions of the monk. This is to his detriment when the monk pulls at the warrior's leg and sends him to the ground in a swift moment. The monk looks at the warrior and starts to walk away, realizing she can't kill the warrior, but as she walks away, she simply pokes the big heavy shield that's teetering on falling over. The warrior goes to get up, but his form is then crushed by the big shield, which causes him to pixelate. Yugi's face is confused, but Rebecca in a chipper voice speaks to him. Eren's effect is that if she attacks a defense position monster, she sends it to the deck before damage calculations, so I take no damage and you're out a monster. She has to attack it so she can't attack again. Hearing her, Yugi sends his Gardna to the deck. This time Rebecca nods before ending her turn. Yugi goes to draw but notices something with Rebecca. She takes the top 3 cards of her deck, looks at them, then sends them to the graveyard. "What are you doing, Rebecca?" Yugi asks since he's confused. She tilts her head and looks at Eren. Eren's second effect is that at the end of the turn I have to send the top 3 cards of my deck to the graveyard. Most of this deck monster have effects like that. Yugi's brow bends at that information since he and the Pharaoh quickly realize this definitely isn't her past deck, so it's completely unknown to them. "I'll draw and then from my hand I'll play the card Soul Exchange from my hand. This allows me to use your monster for the tribute of one of my own. I'll do so by using Eren to summon from my hand Dark Magician Girl." In a flash of light, a red soul appears replacing where Eren was. The soul travels the field like a free spirit and floats over to Yugi's side. After a second, a golden circle starts to form beneath the soul before flashing its own light and starting to suck the soul into the circle. The soul tries to fight back, but the suction force is too strong. The soul is dragged into the circle and disappears as if the circle were a portal. A second later, a puff of white smoke appears and from it reveals an iconic blue-grabbed magical girl with blonde hair. Soul Exchange spell. Dark Magician Girl Dark Spellcaster / Effect ATK 2000 / Def 2000. The appearance of the trademark Yu-Gi-Oh! Magical Girl brings a smile to everyone present besides the ref, who is constantly stone-faced. The magical girl poses with her wand and looks at everyone around curiously, but I can tell the moment she sees me she flinches. Maybe it's because she can see the figures behind me. She returns to looking at Rebecca with a drop of sweat, unaware to everyone, but it's unnoticed as Yugi starts to speak. I'll have Dark Magical Girl attack directly. She raises her rod to the sky and dark magic forms at the tip before being sent as an orb of darkness towards Rebecca, who doesn't respond to the attack with a face down. Rebecca's LP, 4000 greater than 2000. I tune out the peanut gallery as they exclaimed about the reduction of her life points by half in a single turn. Meh, it gets so annoying that after Joey speaks something stupid, I simply say one thing. It doesn't matter, the only life point that matters is the last one. This shuts them up, and with my words, Yugi places a card face down before he ends his turn, allowing Rebecca to return fire. She draws in silence before looking again at her cards. From my hand, I'll play Charge of the Light Brigade. For the cost of sending the top 3 cards of my deck to the graveyard, it allows me to add a level 4 or below Lightsworn to my hand from the deck. Charge of the Light Brigade spell. She goes to mill her deck. When she does, one of the cards starts to glow with light. This causes Rebecca to smile and exclaim, "Yippee, an effect activated, let's see which one." She takes the card and looks at it. As she examines the card, its glow becomes a light violet color. Well, I wasn't expecting it, but I like this. I activate the effect of Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend. His effect is if he's sent from the deck to the graveyard, he allows me to special summon a Lightsworn from my graveyard. Saying this out loud just gave me a game plan. She finishes with a smile / smirk. Weiss, Lightsworn Archfiend Lightfiend / Tuner / Effect ATK 0 / Def 1700. I'll use his effect to special summon from my grave Minerva, Lightsworn Maiden, who I discarded last turn. The light violet light leaps from Rebecca's hand and onto the field on a monster zone. The zone itself starts to glow in similar light before softening into a pale pink shade, and in a flash of pink light appears a bronze-haired maiden in white robes with a pet owl resting on her singular glove. Minerva, Lightsworn Maiden Light Spellcaster / Tuner / Effect ATK 800 / Def 200. Also, we still haven't resolved the March of the Light Brigade, so I'll add a Lightsworn to my hand. It won't be staying there long since I'll activate its effect. I use the effect of Lightsworn Dragonling. By showing a Lightsworn in my graveyard, in this case Weiss, the Dragonling can be special summoned for free. Again, the light violet light appears from the graveyard before jumping onto the field. This time it finds a different zone than before. The zone in question starts to be illuminated with the violet light before it changes to a bright and vibrant yellow color, and again in a flash of light appears this time a small white dragon which appears to be covered in pure white feathers. Lightsworn Dragonling Light Dragon / Effect ATK 1500 / Def 1300. The tiny dragonling roars to intimidate everyone, but everyone including Dark Magician Girl is just enamored with how cute it looks. Props to the visual designing team behind the 3D image tech. Now with my dragonling on the field, I'll use its second effect. When it's special summoned, it allows me to send another Lightsworn to the grave from my deck. For this I'll send Felis, Lightsworn Archer, whose effect is to be summoned to the field if sent from the deck to the graveyard due to monster effect. The feathered dragonling roars with power and a diamond of yellow light appears behind it. The diamond starts spinning like a coin before taking on an earthy brown color. The diamond of light stops spinning to reveal its new form before being sent skyward like a coin before landing on an empty monster zone. Light the other Lightsworn in a flash of colored light. A green-haired cat girl archer in adventure gear appears ready to hit and run in a defensive stance. Felis, Lightsworn Archer Light Beast Warrior / Tuner / Effect ATK 1100 / Def 2000. Most of the gallery is stunned that with a single card and some luck, she got 3 monsters on the field without even normal summoning. Now since I have a field like this changes my plans slightly, but maybe it is for the better. Anyway, from my hand I'll normal summon Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress. Again, a manifestation of light appears in Rebecca's hand. This time the light takes on a pure blue hue, and appearing from its flash is a tall lithe woman in flowing white and golden robes with hair as dark as the night wielding a scepter. Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress Light Spellcaster / Effect ATK 1700 / Def 200. The stacked field would intimidate most if they were against it, but Yugi / Furo isn't, mainly since nothing is strong enough to overwhelm his magician girl. But while not intimidated, he's wary. Rebecca looks at Yugi's wary form and smirks slightly. What with your smirk, Rebecca? I would assume you're not done yet, are you? With a light chuckle, she smiles. You're right, Yugi, this isn't the end since I was just giving those watching a moment to pick up their jaws from the floor before they drop there again. Her words cause some confusion to appear on Yugi's face, but before he can speak, Rebecca starts. First of all, I'll have Lyra use her effect to destroy your most recently played face down at the cost of forcing her to go into defense position. On the field, Lyra seems to concentrate on her scepter before raising it aloft. In a flash of blue light, a beam is sent towards the face down. In a moment it's destroyed a second later, but Lyra's form takes a knee from the exertion of the act. The face down card was revealed to be a magic cylinder, one of Yugi's staples, but once it's gone, Rebecca continues to duel. Now it's time to show the world. I now tune Lyra with Felis to synchro summon Judgment, the Dragon of Heaven. Her words preclude the historically first recorded usage of synchro summoning. Felis from her position jumps to beside Lyra. The pair share a look of determination before Felis places her arm under Lyra's to help her up in her exhausted form. They both leap into the sky while their forms become see-through. The pair separate in the air and their forms dissolve into 4 shining stars and 4 green technological rings. Each ring orbits a star in a uniform pattern, and a flash of blinding white light occurs. Appearing is a giant and grown-up version of the dragonling. The size of the dragon is comparable to a plane, so it hovers behind Rebecca off the blimp. Judgment, the Dragon of Heaven, Light Dragon / Synchro / Effect ATK 3000 / Def 2600. The sight of the giant dragon causes everyone here but me and Rebecca to be intimidated, maybe because it's got the same strength as Blue Eyes. Now to continue, I'm not done. I'll tune my Lightsworn Dragonling with Minerva to synchro summon Michael, the Arch Lightsworn. Minerva walks over to the Dragonling, who is looking at the great dragon with envy. Minerva pets the Dragonling and seems to whisper something into its ear. The pair lock eyes and the Dragonling nods with enthusiasm before running into the air. It runs in the air as if it is solid before becoming a wireframe in form and appearing as 4 stars. Minerva is right behind the Dragonling before becoming a trio of green rings which guide the 4 stars. Their combination starts to produce a light akin to a warm sun in hue, and in a flash of light a golden armored man with armored golden wings appears. His form is high in the air and he starts to fall like a skydiver. Michael, the Arch Lightsworn Light Dragon / Synchro / Effect ATK 2600 / Def 2000. Everyone's attention is on the golden armored angel, so they don't notice Rebecca adding a card to her hand from the deck, but their focus is taken again as they hear a heaven-shaking roar. Its origin is revealed when Judgment, the Dragon of Heaven, flies like a beast possessed towards the Arch Lightsworn. In a fluid moment, like the pair were part of a whole, the dragon and angel collide in the air before leveling out to reveal their combined form of the Archsworn standing on top of the dragon with his blade raised aloft, radiating his sun-like hues against the dark clouds around. The rider and mount take their place behind Rebecca and act like a beacon on her field, as if challenging all the evil in the world to fuck around and find out. Everyone is silent from the display, but I can tell one person is sweating bullets. The dark magician girl is looking very nervous, maybe because she practices dark magic. Now I'll have Michael attack your dark magician girl using his blade of sunlight. Dark magician girl looks scared as she and everyone watch as the Arch Lightsworn raises his blade, which illuminates with his sun-like light, but before he swings, Yugi activates a trap. I'll activate my magical hats. This allows me to hide my dark magician girl under one of 4 hats for you to choose from. Magical hats, anime, spell / quick. In a hurry, dark magician girl waves her wand and from it, 4 magical hats appear above Yugi's monster zones. She then points her wand down. This creates a smoke screen on Yugi's monster zones before the hats descend. After the smoke screen fades, the 4 hats are left on the field. Rebecca, without missing a beat, points to the leftmost hat of the bunch. Michael follows her direction and swings his blade in a downward strike. This produces a slash of condensed light to fly from him to the hat, and the hat in question fizzles into a pile of smoke and pixels, but with no magician underneath. Rebecca isn't happy at that, but she knows this only made the chances of taking Dark Magician Girl out increase from 1 in 4 to 1 in 3. Judgment, attack the middle hat. The dragon listens to her but simply sends its tail to smash down on the hat. Again the hat is popped like a balloon with smoke and pixels, but this time as the dragon's tail is returned from the strike, it now has an addition added onto it. Sorry Rebecca, but you attacked the magical hat, which was hiding my trap. Spellbinding Circle, this debilitates your dragon while it's applied to it. Spellbinding Circle Trap / Continuous. The circle grows in size before moving to the dragon's torso, it then surrounds it like a green ring from the tuning process, with the dragon acting as the star. The dragon roars in rage at the restraint and Rebecca closes her eyes in thought before speaking. I activate Michael's effect. For the cost of 1000 life points he can banish any face-up card on the field, removing your trap. Michael raises his blade to the sky and generates another blade of solar light, but this time he turns and swings the blade towards the circle binding his ally. in a shower of light and sparks the spell is broken, freeing the dragon. Rebecca's LP 2000 greater than 1000. With that, I'll end my turn. When this happens the effects of the dragon then Miquella happens, so I have to banish the first top 4 cards of my deck and then send the next 3 to the graveyard. She does this. She flinches when she sees one of the cards, she banishes, but when she goes to the cards being sent to the graveyard, she tilts her head and then separates 1 card from the 3. This is curious even more so when she waves at the judge. Him being confused, he comes to her and listens to her. After a second, he returns to his place and speaks. One of the cards she just sent to the graveyard has an effect to be placed face down on the field instead. To show that she's not breaking any rules, she required my confirmation of the card effect. It is legal, so the duel may continue, with the card face down. The judge's words cause Yugi to focus on the card since it must be powerful if it requires confirmation. He looks at his deck, closes his eyes and draws. He looks at the card and then smiles. First of all, I'll summon Gamma the Magnet Warrior to the field. At his words, a pink metallic creature with a pair of white lights for eyes appears on the field. Gamma the Magnet Warrior, Earth Rock / Normal ATK 1500 / Def 1800. Now I'll reveal where my Dark Magician Girl was then activated from my hand. The spell card Magical Dimension. The originally rightmost hat flips over to reveal the Dark Magician Girl, but when she appears she's carrying what seems to be a very heavy coffin and places it onto the field behind Gamma. Magical Dimension allows my Dark Magician Girl to place one of my monsters within the coffin, then with a wave of her wand make another monster appear from my hand. Gamma is placed within the coffin with little resistance. Once it's in there, its form disappears like the coffin was a gateway into another space. The coffin is closed, and the Dark Magician Girl waves her wand before a flash comes from the coffin. The coffin shakes once then twice before the coffin's door is opened slowly. In a dramatic flare, a purple-robed figure appears wielding a long emerald staff. Dark Magician, Dark Spellcaster / Normal. ATK 2500 / Def 2000. The appearance of Yugi's ace monster bolsters the peanut gallery, but Yugi isn't finished. Now the final effect of the Magical Dimension. While the coffin is open, Dark Magician Girl and her mentor can use its energy to eliminate one monster on the field. Let's take out your dragon. His words cause focus to return to the coffin, which is now flanked by the pair of magicians. They cross their wands over the coffin and with their other hands point towards the dragon. The coffin amasses dark energy before sending it flying at the dragon. Seeing the dark energy mass, Miquella does a preemptive strike at the mass. He jumps from the head of the great dragon and goes to cut the mass or at least weaken the blast, but as it approaches he realizes he couldn't prepare enough light energy to stave off the mass in time to block the blow and would have to take the hit for the dragon. He accepts this outcome. But his companion intercedes. When the mass strikes Miquella, one of the dragon's tails moves to block the strike, protecting the Lightsworn. Before his eyes he watches as the dark energy starts to turn the tail to ashes as it corrodes the dragon's form. The corrosion is rapid and unrelenting, but before the dragon fades it looks eyes with Miquella before roaring to the heavens with its last breath before fully decaying and turning into pixels. Miquella turns towards the magicians with fury in his eyes and his wings fully spread in a stance against them. Seeing this, Yugi looks at his hand, then comes to a decision. I'll place my magicians under the hats, then shuffle them so you can't tell where each is. The hats descend again, but with only 2 monsters on the field and 2 hats, there will be a takedown, but it's now random. I have to end my turn. At this, Rebecca smiles and draws. She looks at the card with some concentration before playing it face down. Miquella attack the rightmost hat. Miquella raises his sword and with trained precision he sends a slash of light at the hat. The shriek of a female is heard. The hat contains Dark Magician Girl. The hat hides her destruction, but the result is visible when Yugi's life points decrease for the first time this duel. Yugi's LP, 4000 3700. Rebecca isn't massively happy at that she didn't get Yugi's ace, but she goes and does her end turn process by discarding 3 cards. This time a light appears from the trio of cards. She goes to examine it before shrugging and saying. Due to the effect of Wolf, Lightsworn Beast, they're summoned instead of being sent to the graveyard. Wolf, Lightsworn Beast, Light Beast Warrior / effect ATK 2100 / Def 300. A wolf beast man with fur white as snow appears in a black like light. The light isn't darkness itself, it's just black the color. He wields a 2-headed axe single-handed and has a claw made of light in the other. His appearance is anticlimactic since the beast warrior appears as Yugi draws his card. He reveals it immediately. I activate Card of Sanctity, allowing us to both draw until our hands are 6. Card of Sanctity, Anime, Spell. With a refilled hand, Yugi continues his turn. From my hand, I equip my Dark Magician with his magic formula. This increases his attack by 700. Magic formula spell / equip. Dark Magician ATK 2500 3200. With the strongest monster on the field, Yugi doesn't go straight for the win but places one card face down before directing his magician to attack, Wolf for the win. Dark Magician, dark magic attack towards Wolf. His words cause the magician to take the pose to attack the beast warrior, but Rebecca reacts before it attacks. I activate my trap card Twilight Cloth. This card allows me to remove some Lightsworn from the grave to increase the attack and defense of my monster by 200 per card removed for the turn. I'll remove 6 from play for an increase of 1200. Twilight Cloth Trap. Wolf's form takes on a dark sheen as his form becomes empowered. Wolf, Lightsworn Beast ATK 2100 greater than 3300. This new strength causes the Dark Magician to pause since attacking the beast would bring retaliation ending himself. Yugi smiles before directing his magician to attack Michael. The Lightsworn closes his eyes in acceptance and allows the dark energy to strike at him. It causes his form to decay but before he fades away, he raises his sword to the sky and roars like his dragon. Rebecca's LP, 1400. As his roar echoes, this causes Rebecca's graveyard to start glowing every color of the rainbow. I activate Michael's last effect. When he's defeated in battle, he allows me to send as many Lightsworn as I want back to the deck while giving me 300 life points for each I send. At this point, I have 7 Lightsworn in my graveyard. I'll send 3 back to the deck. Rebecca's LP, 401,200. Rebecca recovers from the brink and Yugi's already attacked this turn with his magician, so he places 1 card down before ending his turn, allowing Rebecca to draw to 7 cards. From my hand, I'll end it this. I special summon from my hand Judgment Dragon. At her declaration her graveyard starts to glow again with the colors of 4 of the Lightsworn within. Their light flies out to form a diamond pattern where there's a void between the 4 diamonds of light. This void seems to shimmer like rippling water and from it appears a dragon similar to the previous dragon, but this one doesn't look as wild as the last one. This one seems more refined and focused. Judgment Dragon Light Dragon /Effect ATK 3000 Def 2600. The appearance of another dragon which dwarfs the field spooks most, but Rebecca smiles before speaking again. Now I use Judgment Dragon's effect. At the cost of 1000 life points it destroys all other cards on the field. Her declaration makes everyone present freeze up. But the dragon in question looks at everything in front of it and roars at it in indignation as if everything in front of it isn't pure for heaven's light, so they must be cast aside. It raises its claw and swings it down in a simple action, and this causes tears of light to appear as if stricken by the dragon to appear on every card on the field, even face down spells and traps. Everyone, even the Dark Magician, is shocked at its raw power as everything on both their fields fades away besides the dragon itself. Now with everything on the field gone, I'll special summon from my hand Punishment Dragon. In her words, the pattern of diamonds takes on different hues as the monsters they represent change to those removed from play. Again the void in the pattern ripples like water and from it emerges the same dragon as before, but this form is like a mirror to the Judgment Dragon. The first is restrained and deliberate, but the second one is akin to instinct and wildness personified. Punishment Dragon Dark Dragon /Effect ATK 3000 Def 2600. With the appearance of the pair of dragons, Rebecca looks at Yugi, who's sweating since he was outplayed. The board wipe and the pair of dragons equal in strength to Blue Eyes make him panic. Rebecca sighs before chuckling and speaking. Can you defend against the dragons, Yugi? With a face full of acceptance, he nods and says, I can't block them. At his words, she nods before shocking most people here and around the world before placing her hand over her deck and surrendering the duel to Yugi. The pair of dragons on the field look at their mistress, one with reluctant annoyance and one with serene acceptance. The Judgment Dragon even nods at her decision. Both of their giant forms start to phase away into pixels as the system shuts down at the surrender. Rebecca Hawkins surrendered. Yugi Moto wins.
Thanks for listening.